All right, welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. All right, it's Friday night, the Law of One. Let me take down this overlay that we have up here. How's everybody doing tonight? Wait a minute. There we go. Overlay is down. I decided to go back. Let me know if you can hear everything okay. My microphone was acting a little weird before. But you can see it on the screen. I decided to go back to using Muffy Moose's version of the Law of One because I was having issues with that. Reese, welcome. Denise, welcome. I was having issues with that program that I was using. Thank you, Denise, for tagging everybody. That program that I was using, so it's easier just to deal with the commercials, and you can see the visuals on the screen as well. So I will come back. I'll go into full screen, and then I'll come back I'll put myself up into full screen when I'm talking, and then go back and forth between that. That way people can see the visuals of the Law of One. So I primed this, and we're back a couple of questions from session 82, question 19. We're going to be on question, I think, 16 to start with, and we'll go forward from there. So I just decided that we're going to go back to this. So everybody's got to get used to, I pulled myself up in the full screen here. Everybody's got to get used to raw, but with an English accent, the way it used to be, but the visuals on the screen. And there might be commercials that I might have to quickly bypass and skip when I can, but we'll have to just put up with that. But I'll put it up in full screen so that people can now look like before. Reese remembers when I did the Law of One the first time. Reese, you remember that. So you'll be able to see the Law of One now and read along with the Law of One as you're hearing the audio signal. But those of you obviously listening on an MP3 broadcast, you'll just hear the audio, but now you'll hear it's going to be speaking a little slower because I don't have control over the cadence speed. So this version speaks a little slower than I had the computer with Mark, the voice known as Mark. I sped the cadence up a little bit. But on this, I can't. So if I do, it'll be like 1.5 time. And, that gets a little weird. So you'll be able to read along with the visuals on the MP4 broadcast. The MP3 broadcast, you'll be hearing the same thing, except for now you'll be hearing a English accent instead of an American accent speaking as Rob, still a male. I looked at a woman that was doing it with a female accent, but she had long intros into each video where she spoke, but she was doing the Law of One. But it doesn't seem like, I wasn't finding out if she was interpreting it. It seemed like she was just starting with the interpretation for each session and then letting it play. I guess that, you can make money at doing that. I guess I can make money doing that as well, right? So, get Celeste in here too, right? And Peter, Chandra, get them all in here. Yeah. Thank you, Denise, for waking those people up, right? It's Friday. They should know that, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the Law of One the way it is now with the English accent. So you guys let me know if you can hear it. I'll pull this up into full screen. so that you guys will be able to see the visuals. That's as much as I can zoom in with this platform. It's not like when I was using the other platform that I was using to where I had more control of the studio. I could zoom the screen more, and you guys could see that. So it will be a little small if you're on a phone, but it looked pretty good when I was testing it in here in StreamYard. But if not, you guys will just see that, and I will, like I said, I'll switch from screen to screen like that when I hit pause and when I'm answering questions, and then switch back like that, like I just did for the show. Okay, so let me go ahead and start, and we'll do a sound check, and you guys let me know if you guys can hear it okay, and I'll double check the sound and turn it up, because I'm sure that it needs to be turned up a little bit. Honestly, I don't know for sure, but most of the time I don't have it up really, really loud before I start playing. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit play, and you guys let me know if you can hear it okay, right?
I am Ra. I greet you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Question 82.1. Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. It is as previously stated. Question 82.2. Questioner, is there anything at all that we could do that we are not doing, besides eliminating the contact, to increase the physical energy of the instrument?
Okay, I just realized that I started this over instead of priming it. I was actually talking beforehand. I thought this was the second video. It's the first one. So it's all right. I'm just going to let it play anyways. Just we'll get caught back up. Well, here, let me just shift it back up to where we were. I'll do that, and we'll play the last two questions. So I apologize for that. I thought it was the second video of session 82, but it was the first video. So now we're on question 13, because we're actually on question 19. I was going to start on 15, but we'll let it play to 15. It'll switch over to the next video and start, and that'll be question 16. So I apologize for starting that in the beginning right there. So now we're up to session 82, question 13. We'll go from here.
Coming out of second density. For instance, let us take a particular planet, one of the very early planets formed near the center of the galaxy. I will assume that the planet solidified during the first density, that life appeared in second density, and that all of the mind, body, spirit complexes of...
Right. Denise, Reese, both you guys said, because you like this voice. I actually like this voice better too. I would have continued with it. The only reason why I didn't was because they had commercials. But if that's all we have to put up with, I'll do that and just skip the commercials and go back to this, because I like this voice better too. I like this platform better. Being able to see the visual, people can see the visuals. It also helps me when I'm trying to figure out where we are when we stop, because the visual is there on the screen. I just go to where the last part that I was on and then go, that's where we start. So that's another reason why I wanted to go back to it. I know we're doing it way late at 82, so we'll only have like 16 lessons, but this is what we're going to play from now on. And I probably should have done this from the beginning again, but I'm glad. Maybe you guys should have said something to me. Leo, go back to the way it was. All right, let's continue here.
Third density progressed out of second density on that planet and evolved in third density. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is hypothetically correct. Question 82.14. Questioner, did this in fact happen on some of the planets or on a large percentage of the planets near the center of this galaxy in this way? Answer, I am Ra. Our knowledge is limited. We know of the beginning but cannot asseverate to the precise experiences of those things occurring before us. You know the nature of historical teaching. At our level of learned teaching we may expect little distortion. However, we cannot, with surety, say there is no distortion as we speak of specific occurrences of which we were not consciously a part. It is our understanding that your supposition is correct. Thus we so hypothesize. Question 82.15. Questioner, specifically, I am trying to grasp an understanding of the process of experience in third density before the veil so that I can better understand the present process. As I understand, the mind, body, spirits went through the process of what we call physical incarnation in this density, but there was no forgetting. What was the benefit or purpose of the physical incarnation when there was no forgetting? Answer, I am Ra. The purpose of incarnation in third density is to learn the ways of love.
And weirdly, that's where that session ends, or that half of session 82. So this is the beginning of that. Session 82 is the second part of that video. Weirdly, that
Question 82.16. Questioner, I guess I didn't state that exactly right. What I mean is, since there was no forgetting, since the mind, body, spirits had, in what we call the physical incarnation, their full consciousness, they knew the same thing that they would know while not in the physical incarnation. What was the mechanism of teaching that taught the ways of love in the third density physical prior to the forgetting process? Answer, I am Ra. We ask your permission to answer this query in an oblique fashion as we perceive an area in which we might be of aid. Question 82.17. Questioner, certainly. Answer, I am Ra. Your queries seem to be pursuing the probability that the mechanisms of experience in third density are different if a mind, body, spirit is attempting them rather than a mind, body, spirit complex. The nature of third density is constant. Its ways are to be learned the same now and ever. Thusly, no matter what form the entity facing these lessons, the lessons and mechanisms are the same. The Creator will learn from itself. Each entity has unmanifest portions of learning and, most importantly, learning which is involved with other selves. Question 82.18. Questioner, then prior to the forgetting process there was no concept of anything but service to others polarization. What sort of societies and experiences in third density were created and evolved in this condition? Answer, I am Ra. It is our perception that such conditions created the situation of a most pallid exponential nexus in which lessons were garnered with the relative speed of the turtle to the cheetah. Question 82.19. Questioner, did such societies evolve with technologies of a complex nature, or did they remain quite simple? Can you give me a general idea of the evolvement that would be a function of what we would call intellectual activity? Answer, I am Ra. There is infinite diversity in societies under any circumstances. There were many highly technologically advanced societies which grew due to the ease of producing any desired result. When one dwells within what might be seen to be a state of constant potential inspiration, that which even the most highly sophisticated, in your terms, societal structure lacked, given the non-complex nature of its entities, was what you might call will, or, to use a more plebeian term, gusto, or elan vital.
See, so literally everything, let me come back over here, right? Everything has the potential, and that's what he's saying here, that everything literally has the potential of becoming whatever it is that we want it to become in the matrix, right? So the matrix itself is supposed to give us whatever we want as a societal structure. So that's one of the reasons why the Orion Crusaders, the what you know as the Anunnaki, are taking control of everything here through proxy by television, internet, everything, apps, and honing your concentration away from the ascension and to the physical plane, and then saying to you in the physical plane, we're in charge, and getting you convinced that we're in charge, you're a slave, we own you, we own the planet, you can't change anything, and it's hopeless to try. And oh, by the way, fear each other in case there's any differences whatsoever. If you're white, it's your fault. If you're black, it's your fault. And, you're a victim no matter what. Here's some drugs. Here's a bunch of bad food. Here's all this stuff that's going on. Get yourself hooked on something, and they have something for everybody to chase after: sports or shooting guns or skiing or swimming or being online and being a influencer or whatever. They have somewhere out there. They've made sure that on all platforms there is a place for you to go that will distract you completely away from anything and everything and that has to do with spirituality. Even the churches now, they're distracting you by taking control of the churches and not allowing you to see what's going on in the world through the churches. So they're doing all of that, right? They're doing all of that to keep you from paying attention to anything. So it's only when you see things through that the lens of that, and the first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence, seeing that in the universe and realizing that when you're looking around at everybody and everything in the universe that, or in this matrix, that specifically, I'm sorry, I was too high up there and talking about in the universe, in the matrix. When you're looking around, I didn't realize that I shot that up until I heard myself say the word universe. That when you're in this matrix here and you're looking around at the world, you have to realize that everything is trying to distract you. Everything that is on television, even the people that aren't aware of it, they're there thinking they're just entertainment value. I'm here to entertain. I'm an entertainer. I entertain people. What that means is that they entertain you because what they say is, I'm trying to give you relief from this crazy world, like a comedian or somebody who's an actor. But the problem is that they're being controlled and they're entertaining you. But when they're entertaining you away from looking at spirituality or looking within yourself. So you're looking outward, always outward for the answers to all of your questions. You're always wanting, somebody has to know. I don't know. Somebody else has to know. And so you're looking for somebody, and then they provide those somebodies that will lead you around in circles and never teach you anything. And that's what they're doing. So literally what Ra is talking about here, and getting back on point, and then we'll start it again. What Ra is talking about here is that you have to know that this place is designed to give you what you're looking for, what you want, and what you put out there. So if you're distracted by it, it will run you, and you will be caught in it, and it will just take you. It'll just take you along with it, like a wave or like a avalanche in the snow. You either are ahead of it or you're not. There was a guy here in California that was on the news this morning that was skiing down a mountain, and apparently he either missed the warning that there was possible avalanches and to not go in certain areas, or he ignored it. Or it was something that just happened. But he was skiing along, and they had a film of it. They had a film of it where he was skiing along, and there was an avalanche that was coming down, and he was just going in front of it for all it was worth down the mountain, and he was maybe 100 yards ahead of it the entire time, and he lived. He got ahead of it and was okay. That happens every now and then. You see that where somebody does that and they ride it out. I've seen a few videos where the guys are skiing or boogie boarding, and then next thing you know, they're crunched down and they're going for broke to stay ahead of the avalanche. And other times you've seen that happen to where the avalanche catches them and they end up dead. This guy didn't get caught by the avalanche and got out, and they showed it. It was on the news, and they were like, "Look at this lucky guy!" And he's just surfing on the snow, and that avalanche is coming down behind him, and the avalanche there's no way for him to avoid it. He couldn't move far enough out of the way because it was so big. He was going down that mountain, down as far as he could go to outrun it, and he did. So it either catches you and it pulls you like that and it smothers you, or you outrun it when that happens. But you have to realize that this matrix, it's designed to do that. So it's designed for that. This is what Ra is talking about here. So if you guys just popped in and all of a sudden I press play and you're going to like trip on what you're seeing visually and hearing, I went back to, if you listened before I did the second version of Ra, like Reese and Denise were talking about, they go far enough back to when I was doing this the first time. I've gone back to the English voice from Matthew Moose and their visuals. So now you can see the Law of One on the screen you can also hear it, but it's an English accent now instead of an American accent. So if you're wondering that when I start right now, you won't be crazy about it. So here we go. Let me get back into this session 82, question 20, or we're about to be on question 20. Let me go ahead and restart it here, okay?
Question 82.20. Questioner. Did such technological societies evolve travel through what we call space to other planets or other planetary systems? Did some of them do this? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. Question 82.21. Questioner, and even though, from our point of view, there was great evolutionary experience, it was deemed at some point by the evolving logos that an experiment to create a greater experience was appropriate. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct and may benefit from comment. The Logos is aware of the nature of the third density requirement for what you have called graduation, or the previous, if you would use this term, experiments, although resulting in many experiences, lacked what was considered the crucial ingredient, that is, polarization. There was little enough tendency for experience to polarize entities that entities repeated habitually the third density cycles many times over. It was desired that the potential for polarization be made more available. Question 82.22. Questioner, then since the only possibility at this particular time, as I see it, was a polarization for service to others, I must assume from what you said that even though all were aware of this service to others necessity, they were unable to achieve it. What was the configuration of mind to the mind, body, spirits at that time? Why did they have such a difficult time serving others to the extent necessary for graduation, since this was the only polarity possible? Answer, I am Ra. Consider, if you will, the tendency of those who are divinely happy, as you call this distortion, to have little urge to alter or better their condition. Such is the result of the mind, body, spirit, which is not complex. There is the possibility of love of other selves and service to other selves, but there is the overwhelming awareness of the Creator in the self. The connection with the Creator as that of the umbilical cord. The security is total. Therefore, no love is terribly important, no pain terribly frightening, no effort, therefore, is made to serve for love or to benefit from fear. Question 82.23.
Right, yeah, Reese, we're on, I think we're back on standard, and we sprung forward. So we were full back, so we're on daylight savings time now, I think. So I think we're on standard time. You guys are going to fall back on what is that, April 6th or so. You guys are going to fall back, so it's going to change again of the timeline, right? So yeah, again, guys, this is, if you're just in here now and you're like, wait a minute, am I on the right live? You are on the right live. I've gone back to using these videos from Matthew Moose. This is what I used the entire time I did the Law of One the first time, but I've decided to go back to that so that you guys can see the visuals. And the editing program that I have was annoying to me that I had to re-edit it every time to get it to say raw. And this has the visuals that you can also read on the screen. So you just have to get used to the new accent instead of an American accent. It's an English accent. But if those of you who listened to the Law of One when I did it the first time, chances are you're so used to it, like Reese and Denise were talking about, you're so used to it that you actually like this voice better. So let me go ahead and press play and we'll continue here, okay?
Questioner, it seems that you might make an analogy in our present illusion of those who are born into extreme wealth and security. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. Within the strict bounds of the simile, you are perceptive. Question 82.24. Questioner, we have presently an activity between physical incarnations called the healing and review of the incarnation. Was anything of this nature occurring prior to the veil? Answer, I am Ra. The inchoate structure of this process was always in place, but where there has been no harm there need be no healing. This too may be seen to have been of concern to Logwa, which were aware that without the need to understand, understanding would forever be left undone. We ask your forgiveness for the use of this misnomer, that your language has a paucity.
Yeah, Paulie, we here in the United States, actually the Australians do it too. They're going to change times on April 4th. We in the United States, we don't like it. We're trying to get rid of it. And we've been doing it for hundreds of years now in the United States, where in the springtime, we move forward 1 hour. And then when the fall hits, we go back an hour, we lose an hour. So one time is standard time, and then the other one is daylight savings time. So standard time is what we are in the winter, and daylight savings time is what we shift to. And we just shifted on Sunday. We just shifted to the daylight savings time, so we literally moved forward an hour. And we Americans don't like it, and we've been lobbying for my entire life to not have it anymore. So we're trying to get them to stay on this time as the standard time. We're trying to get to stay. No, this is daylight savings time. So we're trying to get them to abolish it. And Donald Trump is the president of the United States right now, and he's working on trying to get that, because if the people vote on it, the majority of the population of the United States doesn't want to do the time change anymore. And it's not everybody, because like I lived in Arizona, the state of Arizona doesn't do the time change. So when I was living in Arizona, we didn't change times. Everything else changed around us. The programming that was on, I guess I take this down for a second. The programming that was on television, for instance, that would start at 8 p.m. normally would all of a sudden start at 7 p.m. because everybody else would change. And Australia does the time change as well. And since they're below the equator, they're going to fall back an hour, and we just sprung forward an hour. So on April 4th or 6th, I don't remember which it is, they're going to change it. I don't know if the whole of Australia does that, but I know that some of the provinces there, just like some of the states here, do that. Most of the states in the United States do it. We're trying to get rid of it. I think you guys in the UK don't do any time change. Good on to you if you don't. It's confusing. It's annoying. And there's no real reason for it. It had to do with slavery. They claim it had to do with when we were everybody had to go out and work in the fields, and they changed the time so that that's why they call it daylight savings. So people would have more time during the day to work in the fields. But truly, when you look at it, it has more to do with the enslavement of the population and slavery than it did because the slaves could work longer hours during the day in this time period. So we're trying to get rid of it because we just don't do that stuff anymore. We're not an agricultural country anymore. So it's just annoying. And 99% of the population is not affected by their job by that. We still, in the wintertime, I would get up to go to work when it was dark, and I would come home in the dark. That's just the way it was because they're shorter days, right? So anyway, okay, I'm going to continue, right? Yeah, Paulie said, you said we do twice a year, so you guys change it as well. See, okay, so you guys are on that, and I'm sure it came over to America and Australia because of the English, because they used to own this country and Australia. So I'm sure that that's a European thing that had to do with them back there. We don't need to get in that politics right now, but yeah, we're trying to do away with it in the United States. Okay, let me put this back up on the screen, and we'll go ahead and continue here with the law of one.
Of sound vibration complexes for this general concept. Question 82.25. Questioner: I don't grasp too well the condition of incarnation and the time in between incarnations prior to the veil. I do not understand what was the difference other than the manifestation of the third density, yellow ray body. Was there any mental difference upon what we call death? I don't see the necessity for what we call the review of the incarnation if the consciousness was uninterrupted. Could you clear up that point for me? Answer: I am Ra. No portion of the Creator audits the course, to use your experiential terms. Each incarnation is intended to be a course in the Creator knowing itself. A review, or, shall we say, to continue the metaphor, each test is an integral portion of the process of the Creator knowing itself. Each incarnation will end with such a test. This is so that the portion of the Creator may assimilate the experiences in yellow, physical, third density, may evaluate the biases gained, and may then choose, either by means of automatically provided aid or by the self, the conditions of the next incarnation. Question 82.26. Questioner: before the veil, during the review of the incarnation, were the entities at that time aware that what they were trying to do was sufficiently polarized for graduation? Answer: I am Ra. This is correct. Question 82.27. Questioner: then I am assuming that this awareness was somehow reduced as they went into the yellow ray third density incarnative state even though there was no veil. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is distinctly incorrect. Question 82.28. Questioner: okay, this is the central important point. It seems to me that if polarization was the obvious thing, that more effort would have been put forward to polarize. Let me see if I can state this differently. Before the veil, there was an awareness of the need for polarization towards service to others in third density by all entities, whether incarnate in third density, yellow ray bodies, or in between incarnations. I assume, then, that the condition of which we earlier spoke, one of wealth you might say, was present through the entire spectrum of experience, whether it might be between incarnations or during incarnations, and the entities just simply could not manifest the desire to create this polarization necessary for graduation. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. You begin to grasp the situation. Let us continue the metaphor of the schooling, but consider the scholar as being an entity in your younger years of the schooling process. The entity is fed, clothed, and protected regardless of whether or not the schoolwork is accomplished. Therefore, the entity does not do the homework but rather enjoys playtime, mealtime, and vacation. It is not until there is a reason to wish to excel that most entities will attempt to excel.
Right. So literally what happens, that is kind of what happens in the third dimension everywhere in the universe, where when you're first here, you come into the matrix, you're veiled. This is the point of what he's saying. You're veiled, and because you're veiled, you come in, and normally you come in and you start living and just living and existing, because you're just now self-aware. So you're self-aware for the first time. So you come in here and you get locked into the matrix really quickly and really easily in the first life that you're in. And then even in that first life, there's the potentiation. There's the potential for you to start waking up in a spiritual sense. But almost always it takes something as a catalyst to that, something to happen to you or in your life before you do that. And then you start doing that. So we know that even though if I tell you the secrets to the universe, if you're not ready to grasp that concept, you're not going to start your path upward in the ascension. If you're in service to others, if you're in service to self, you'll only move up on that side anyway, loving yourself. But if you're in service to others, you still won't really start moving upwards on that path until something happens in your life that drives you to do so. And you won't stay on that path until you have the dark night of the soul. And the dark night of the soul is usually something drastic where you hit rock bottom, and then you realize that there's nowhere to go but up, and you start the journey at that point. You pick yourself back up and you start the journey at that point. But there has to be something that is potential or a potentiator that will occur in your life that will drive you onto that course of being driven to want to make changes in your life. Otherwise, you'll just be happy doing your life and being oblivious to what's going on in your life. And then strife happens of some sort of trauma happens, people dying around you, you lose a partner, you lose your mother, your father, aunt, uncle, something, or your life is in danger and you almost died, and you have that epiphany of, I should have died just then, but I didn't. And then you have a different outlook on life itself, and something happens to be the potentiator in your life to change the course of your life, to have you start looking more within and without in a different manner. But it takes that to happen, because I can tell you this all day long, and if you're not at that place or you haven't already had that thing happen to you, you may understand it, you may understand it, but you won't do anything about it. You'll be like, oh, okay, good to know. And you'll continue living your life and you'll go back to doing what you're doing. That's why we always try to tell people that you have to allow people to be where they are, because you can't force them to go through that. Something has to trigger in them. And that is always on the path that they're on at the right time, you as an individual is on. So whatever the trigger is that'll happen and occur in your life will happen organically to you at some point in your life. Maybe not even in the lifetime that you're currently in, depending on how many times you've been here and how many times you've come across that lesson to possibly learn. And that's what Ra's talking about here. Okay, let me continue with this. Oh, I got to change that back over there to put that back into the full screen. See, I got to go back to producing more and instead of just hitting a button like I was doing before.
Question 82.29. Questioner, you have stated in a much earlier session that it is necessary to polarize more than 50% service to others to be harvestable fourth density positive. Was this condition the same at the time before the veil? Answer, I am Ra. This shall be the last full query of this working. The query is not answered easily, for the concept of service to self he did not hold sway previous to what we have been calling the veiling process. The necessity for graduation to fourth density is an ability to use, welcome, and enjoy a certain intensity of the white light of the one infinite creator. In your own terms at your space-time nexus, this ability may be measured by your previously stated percentages of service. Prior to the veiling process, the measurement would be that of an entity walking up a set of your stairs, each of which was imbued with a certain quality of light. The stair upon which an entity stopped would be either third density light or fourth density light. Between the two stairs lies the threshold. To cross that threshold is difficult. There is resistance at the edge, shall we say, of each density. The faculty of faith all needs to be understood, nourished, and developed in order to have an entity which seeks past the boundary of third density. Those entities which do not do their homework, be they ever so amiable, shall not cross. It was this situation which faced the Logua prior to the veiling process being introduced into the experiential continuum of third density. May we ask if there are any brief queries at this working? Question 82.30. Questioner, is there anything that we can do to improve the contact or make the instrument more comfortable? Answer, I am Ra. All parameters are being met. Remain united in love and thanksgiving. We thank you for your conscientiousness as regards the appurtenances. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite glorious Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing merrily in the power and the peace of the one Creator. Adonai.
So it should switch over by itself. It used to switch to the next session. Let's see if it does it by itself here. Right? I think it does it by itself because it did it earlier when I was testing it. So that was the end of session 82, and it should go straight.
My first encounter with consciousness from another world was when I met someone in 2010 whose most...
All right, there we go. Okay, so
I
it is
am
session
Ra.
83.
I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. I communicate now. Question 83.1.
So if that's the worst thing that we have is that it gives a commercial at the beginning, we'll just have to deal with that. And then I'll skip it as soon as I can, right? All right, here we go.
Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. It is as previously stated. Question 83.2. Questioner, could you please tell me why the instrument now gains weight after a session instead of losing it? Answer, I am Ra. To assume that the instrument is gaining the weight of the physical bodily complex due to a session or working with Ra is erroneous. The instrument is no longer any physical material which, to any observable extent, must be used in order for this contact to occur. This is due to the determination of the group that the instrument shall not use the vital energy which would be necessary since the physical energy complex level is in deficit. Since the energy, therefore, for these contacts is a product of energy transfer, the instrument must no longer pay this physical price. Therefore, the instrument is not losing the weight. However, the weight gain, as it occurs, is the product of two factors. One is the increasing sensitivity of this physical vehicle to all that is placed before it, including that towards which it is distorted in ways you would call allergic. The second factor is the energizing of these difficulties. It is fortunate for the outlook of this contact and the incarnation of this entity that it is not distorted towards the overeating, as the overloading of this much distorted physical complex would override even the most fervent affirmation of health illness and turn the instrument towards the distortions of illness health, or, in the extreme case, the physical death. Question 83.3. Questioner, thank you. I'm going to ask a rather long, complex question, and I would request that the answer to each portion of this question be given if there was a significant difference prior to the veil than following the veil, so that I can get an idea of how what we experience now is used for better polarization. What was the difference before the veil in the following while incarnate in third density: sleep, dreams, physical pain, mental pain, sex, disease, catalyst programming, random catalyst, relationships, and communication with the higher self or with the mind, body, spirit totality, or any other mind, body, or spirit functions before the veil that would be significant with respect to their difference after the veil? Answer, I am Ra. Firstly, let us establish that both before and after the veil the same conditions existed in time-space, that is, the veiling process is a space-time phenomenon. Secondly, the character of experience was altered drastically by the veiling process. In some cases, such as the dreaming and the contact with the higher self, the experience was quantitatively different due to the fact that the veiling is a primary cause of the value of dreams and is also the single door against which the higher self must stand awaiting entry. Before veiling, dreams were not for the purpose of using the so-called unconscious to further utilize catalyst, but were used to learn teach learners within the inner planes as well as those of outer origins of higher density. As you deal with each subject of which you spoke, you may observe, during the veiling process, not a quantitative change in the experience but a qualitative one. Let us, as an example, choose your sexual activities of energy transfer. If you have the desire to treat other subjects in detail, please query forthwith. In the instance of the sexual activity of those not dwelling within the veiling, each activity was a transfer. There were some transfers of strength. Most were rather attenuated in the strength of the transfer due to the lack of veiling. In the third density, entities are attempting to learn the ways of love. If it can be seen that all are one being, it becomes much more difficult for the undisciplined personality to choose one mate and, thereby, initiate itself into a program of service. It is much more likely that the sexual energy will be dissipated more randomly without either great joy or great sorrow, depending from these experiences. Therefore, the green ray energy transfer, being almost without exception the case in sexual energy transfer prior to veiling, remains weakened and without significant crystallization. The sexual energy transfers and blockages after veiling have been discussed previously. It may be seen to be a more complex study, but one far more efficient in crystallizing those who seek the green ray energy center.
See, so there's a lot there, right? So, yeah, Joanne, sorry, we because of the time change, we're on earlier now by 1 hour than before. If your time doesn't change, because we just sprung forward by 1 hour, so it's actually earlier. So it's 3 p.m. my time. Right now it's 3:41 my time. So now we're back to GMT -7, I think, when we were GMT -8 before, or the other way around now. I'd have to look up the clock. But we just sprung forward into daylight savings time here in the United States, right? So we're on an hour earlier. Unfortunately, that's just I should have put out a notice saying that, but I didn't think about it. I was busy messing around. And if you just got here, you see that I'm going back to, if you were not listening to the podcast when I did the Law of One the first time, this is the videos that I used the first time. I've now gone back to that, and I realized I should have stayed with it the entire time, and I was trying to not, because of the commercials that they have on the beginning of this video, or these videos now. But if I have to listen to a 5-second commercial just to change things, then it's okay. Now you have the visuals on the screen. I just have to go back to producing, to where I have to, put the screen up in full and whatever for me and for the video at the same, and then go back and forth. So yeah, the time change has got everybody messed up. Even the people who live within the time change, when we change times, are a mess. But I did go live at 3 p.m. like normal. It's just 3 p.m. is now sooner than it was before. All right, let me put this back up from the screen and we'll finish that. Well, so literally using the energy, the Kundalini energies, the Kundalini Kunda buffer energy. Ra's talking about potentiating the heart chakra, the green center chakra, and that's the only one that is shared by people that are self-serving and people that are in service to others. Those centers, I mean, they all kind of are, but in the polarization of your beingness, that's where that polarization is the only place that polarization merges. Everywhere else, the lower chakras are polarized, either in service to self or in service to others, and the upper chakras are polarized in service to self or in service to others. The heart chakra is the only one that is where you get that Visakha Pisces, the yin and the yang, where the overlap is, where you have the light and the dark and the dark and the light. That is the Visakha Pisces. That's the 0 point of the Taurus, right? The toroidal field, the 0 point in the toroidal field is the heart chakra. And so it's actually its own toroidal field. So that's the triple toroidal field that is the human condition. And the heart chakra being the center point, the 0 point of your beingness and where everything comes from, right? St. Patrick's Day, that's right. Peter said St. Patrick's Day. It's so, yeah, it's all of his fart, right? That's funny. It's all his fart. It's all his fault. Patrick's fault. So, yeah, literally, and happy St. Patrick's Day for those of you out there in the world. Monday, the 17th of March is the St. Patrick's Day. If you guys are Christian or if you're Catholic, you understand what that means. If you're Irish and you're Irish American, you understand what that means. So it means a little bit more to the Irish Americans, and we have a big celebration over here, and Ireland has a celebration now as well for St. Patrick's Day. In fact, if you look, they dye the Hudson River green every year, and they should be dyeing it green tomorrow on Saturday if they haven't already done it. They'll dye the river green and continue dyeing it for St. Patrick's Day. They use a non-toxic dye that doesn't harm any fish or anybody at all. Even if you drink the water, it's not going to harm you. They've made sure to do that over the years to where it's that way. So this whole entire weekend and going into St. Patrick's Day, we're going to have parades and all kinds of fairs and stuff going on. There's a parade in almost every American town and every American city, literally, for St. Patrick's Day for this weekend. So it's going to be fun. I'm not going out anywhere, but I am going to be cooking corned beef and cabbage. I will take pictures and I will post them on Facebook. I do that every year. So I will do that because I love food porn. So I will be posting my pictures of what I make. I do that especially St. Patrick's Day. So there'll be pictures of corned beef and cabbage for myself and my mother. My sister may or may not make it up here. I don't think she's going to make it this year, but I still will be doing that, right? And so Joanne said it is also celebrated in the UK. Glad to know that. Glad to know that people around the world are celebrating St. Patrick's Day. It's important to this country. I know that Ireland originally didn't do it. Originally, that was an American thing. It was a different celebration. Ireland was where it originated because of St. Patrick, right? So there was a celebration but not the modern one that we celebrate. And I think Canada does it too. Almost every European nation. I don't know if Australia does it. I know they do something because of talking to Reese and Brooke and Rick. I know that they do. So I'm pretty sure because they're a European country, like this is a European country, right? And people hate to hear that, but we were invented by the English. This was a penal colony, just like Australia was a penal colony, right? Just like Ireland was a penal colony, just like everything else that was under the king's rule was a penal colony. But it didn't originate in England. It originated in Ireland. And that continues to this day. So I'm glad that people are still doing it. It's like Halloween. In this country, it was waning, and around the world, people just see it as an American holiday. It's not an American holiday. It actually also started in Europe, the Irish, the Scottish, and the Welsh, specifically the Southern Vikings, because of their bonfires, because of the last harvest and that whole thing. I'm not going to get involved in that because it's not in fact Halloween. So as we get closer to Halloween in October, I'll talk more about that. And Peter and I usually talk about that on air, talking about that. So we'll get there. But a lot of the European holidays are, because Europeans, I mean, we're all over the world, right? People who are European descent are all over the world, to the dismay of some people around the world, right? So anyways, yeah, right? I love that you guys are putting up some I'm going to put those on the screen. 3-leaf clovers, a bunch of them here. Peter puts them up as well, right? I actually have a black 3-leaf clover tattooed over my heart right here, and to remember that some of the counties in Ireland were occupied, and they're still under occupation by the English, by the UK governmental system. Anyway. So I haven't put the green one next to it yet, but I do have the green man tattooed on my back. Some of you know about that. Okay, so I'll stop talking about the St. Patrick's Day, but since I won't be on the air again until St. Patrick's Day, I should have grabbed the tie. Maybe I'll do that when I press play. I'll go and get my sister brought a green tie up here, and I think I still have it in the bedroom. I'll go put it on, so the next time you see me on camera, I'll have a little green tie on that my sister wore up here one year for St. Patrick's Day, and she left it here, and I believe it's hanging off my desk. I'm going to go see. Well, Raw is talking just for the fun of it because this will be the last show before St. Patrick's Day this year, right? And thank you, Penny, right? There you go. Penny's putting them up there. 3-leaf and 4-leaf clovers up there on the screen. And the symbol for Ireland, by the way, for their military is the 3-leaf clover. They have that on their equipment and their uniforms and their tanks and their guns and their bombs. Oh, was that a faux pas? I just quoted Zombie by the Cranberries, who were a Northern Ireland band who was against the Irish people trying to free themselves from the English, and wrote a song that everybody loves, and they have no idea that it was a song that was saying that the people in the South that are fighting are only being brainwashed by their parents to continue being fighting, yet Ireland still remains free. Thank you very much. as a free and sovereign nation, and a very wealthy one, or becoming a more wealthy one these days. Not as wealthy as they could be, but I just thought I'd throw a little politics in there. All right, so let's get back to the law of one. Let's get back to Raw. Let me put this up on the full screen, and we'll get back to law of one. But happy St. Patrick's Day, happy St. Patty's Day for anyone out there who is listening to this that hears it before St. Patrick's Day, who may or may not be Irish or a Christian or an Irish Catholic who would be interested in St. Patrick's Day. All right, here we go.
Question 83.4. Questioner, let's take, then, since we are on the subject of sex, the relationship before and after the veil of disease, in this particular case venereal disease. Was this type of disease in existence prior to the veil? Answer, I am Ra. There has been that which is called disease, both of this type and others, before and after this great experiment. However, since the venereal disease is in large part a function of the thought forms of a distorted nature which are associated with sexual energy blockage, the venereal disease is almost entirely the product of mind, body, spirit complexes interaction after the veiling. Question 83.5. Questioner, you mentioned that it existed in a small way prior to the veil. What was the source of its development prior to the veiling process? Answer, I am Ra. The source was as random as the nature of disease distortions are, at heart, in general. Each portion of the body complex is in a state of growth at all times. The reversal of this is seen as disease and has the benign function of ending an incarnation at the appropriate space-time nexus. This was the nature of disease, including that which you call venereal.
So, yeah, let me come back over here, Chandra. That was... Yeah, the song "Zombie" was about that. It was literally, she said, "I always love Zombie." I always thought there was something to that song. If you listen to the song, it is literally about. It's about, if you watch the video, you'll see it because they show you the kids running around playing, playing the resistance, and then you see the IRA billboards and the IRA paintings on the walls. So the song was anti-war. About the war between the Irish and the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and the English government over the counties in the north that are currently still occupied by the United Kingdom. And that started in the Easter Uprising on Easter morning in 1916, when the war started, where the Irish people decided that they no longer wanted to be under the English rule, under the tyrannical rule of the English government. And the English government said, I'm sorry, you can't just remove yourself. And so we started a revolutionary war. They started a revolutionary war, just like the United States did in 1776, started a revolutionary war and kicked the English out of the United States. The Irish kicked the English out of Ireland, but they held on to the counties in the north in Ireland, and that continued. The fighting continued until around 1995 or 6, and then it was off and on. And in 1997, the English government officially recognized Ireland as a free and sovereign nation, even though the Irish had declared their free and sovereign nation in 1916. The English government didn't acknowledge that until 1997. So all the rest of the time, they were at war with one another, and the lines were drawn in the north and stayed there to where they are now. And then there was a ceasefire, and they acknowledged Ireland as helped Bill Clinton, the president of the United States, helped broker that deal to get the English to do that. So that song was about that, but when that war was still happening, was about the propagation of that war, and it was done by the Cranberries, who were a band that was sympathetic to the United Kingdom, and they were basically chastising the Irish people for continuing the war and saying in that song that the kids didn't have any free will because they were being brainwashed by people, and that's why they were saying that they were zombies, and that's why they were saying zombie. Then in the song was about that, where that war only existed in your head. That's a lyric from the song itself, that it's only in your head. And the truth was that she was trying to say that Ireland shouldn't be free because Ireland actually is property of the United Kingdom in that song. The band is great. The song is great. I loved that band, but I didn't agree with their politics. I was on the other side of that politics because I used to work for the Irish government. I used to work for the Irish Republican Army. So I was on the other side of that politics, even though I liked the band, even though that song is a great song, very well written, very well sung, but it's a song that is propagating the occupation and enslavement of the Irish people, and saying that children are dying because the Irish people in Ireland are brainwashing them into fighting. And she was showing examples of paintings on the wall of Irish Republican Army guys dressed in black and having their face in mask and things, and the kids playing with guns in the streets, saying that was the only reason that war was going on, was because a few people who were propagating hate. And the truth is, the majority of the people in Ireland, when given the chance, voted themselves not to be part of the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're not going to go abide by that." Okay. So yeah, in your head. See, that's exactly it, right? So in your head. And so it was about that. Well, yeah. So yeah, right. So it was about that. So she was saying in your head, zombie, because it was just in the heads, in the minds of those people who believed that they should be free, right? I didn't have a rank as much as she said. What rank were you? What rank was I in the Irish Republican Army? I didn't have a rank. Actually, the rank would have been colonel in the Irish Republican Army. By the standards of what you're thinking of rank is, I was a colonel. But I worked in the Secret Service, part of that. So I was not in the formal military of the Irish government. Secret Service of the Irish government, kind of akin to the CIA in the United States. And I worked here in the United States in that capacity. And I worked with the United States CIA at some point, and with the MI5, some of the people who were not exactly friendly to the cabal that thinks they own this planet currently, setting up and dealing with things. But yeah, I worked, and I brought information back and forth across the pond, and made sure that people over here understood what was happening over there, and brokered people, money, guns, weapons, in whatever needed capacity to help fund the government of Ireland to fight against the English government. And I'm not afraid to say that now, because now that Ireland is a free and sovereign nation, I'm no longer designated as a war criminal by anybody. And if the English try to take me into their country to prosecute me, they have to prove who I was, and I was in that capacity because I was two other people besides the name that you know now. So they couldn't prove it anyways, and nobody saw me or had pictures of me. So, anyways, yeah. So, but I'm not afraid to say that I did that, because while doing that, I was helping set up the coalitions around the world that have been resisting the people. They were there in pockets all over the world in different countries, and I was one of the people that helped broker the messaging and talking to one another and getting everybody to unite under a world banner against these people around the world. And had we not done that, COVID would have gone completely different for this world. And the reason that everybody was able to resist what was going on, right? Yeah, there's Peter, Sergeant 2268, right? There's Peter. Peter's rank in the Sergeant 2268, right? So that's good, brother. So yeah, so he obviously was a member of the military for the Irish Republic, and yeah, so Peter and I go back quite a ways, right? For you guys who are unaware of that. So yeah, anyway, let me get off of that subject. So that whole thing is a little bit more on my mind when it comes to in my heart when it comes to that song and the idea of what was going on around the world and what is going on around the world in a very different way than people realize. So yeah, and so then I'm not working for them anymore, and I haven't since about 2002 or so. I was a consultant for a while afterwards. Once I got their once it became a free and sovereign nation, there wasn't so much needed, but I still kept connections because I was still brokering the stuff coming forward, knowing that 2016 and on was going to be a time when we needed these coalitions to become cohesive. And then COVID hitting in 2017, 2019 was when it hit the world. When you guys knew about it, we knew about it. 2017, Peter, wasn't that when we started getting information about it? 2016, 2017, we were being fed information about COVID going to hit the world by 2020. So we were working together, doing that behind the scenes, getting the coalitions up and running. So happy St. Patrick's Day one more time, Aaron Gobra. For those of you out there who are listening, Anal Gobra as well. Anal Gobra, what did I say? Yeah. Alba Gobra. And like I said, Aaron Gobra, for those of you who are listening around the world that understand that, have a great day, have a great weekend, and let's get back to the law of one. I'll stop screwing around. All right, here we go. Back to the law of one. Here we go. Let me press play over here, and we'll get going again.
Question 83.6. Questioner, I'll make this statement and you can correct me. As I see the nature of the action of disease before the veil, it seems to me that the Logos had decided upon a program where an individual mind, body, spirit would continue to grow in mind, and the body would be the third density analog of this mind. The growth would be continual unless there was an inability, for some reason, for the mind to continue along the growth patterns. If this growth decelerated or stopped, what we call disease would then act in a way so as to eventually terminate this physical experience, so that a new physical experience would be started after a review of the entire process had taken place between incarnations. Would you clear up my thinking on that, please? Answer, I am Ra. Your thinking is sufficiently clear on this subject. Question 83.7. Questioner, the thing I don't understand is why, if there was no veil, the review of the incarnation after the incarnation would help the process, since it seems to me that the entity should already be aware of what was happening. Possibly this has to do with the nature of space-time and time-space. Could you clear that up, please? Answer, I am Ra. It is true that the nature of time-space is such that a lifetime may be seen whole as a book or record, the pages studied, riffled through, and reread. However, the value of review is that of the testing as opposed to the studying. At the testing, when the test is true, the distillations of all study are made clear. During the process of study, which you may call the incarnation, regardless of an entity's awareness of the process taking place, the material is diffused and over-attention is almost inevitably placed upon detail. The testing upon the cessation of the incarnative state is not that testing which involves the correct memorization of many details. This testing is, rather, the observing of self by self, often with aid, as we have said. In this observation one sees the sum of all the detailed study, that being an attitude or complex of attitudes which bias the consciousness of the mind, body, spirit. Question 83.8. Questioner, now before the veil an entity would be aware that he was experiencing a disease. As an analogy would you give me, if you are aware of a case, a disease an entity might experience prior to the veil, and how he would react to this and think about it and what effect it would have on him? Answer, I am Ra. Inasmuch as the universe is composed of an infinite array of entities, there is also an infinity of response to stimulus. If you will observe your peoples, you will discover greatly variant responses to the same distortion towards disease. Consequently, we cannot answer your query with any hope of making any true statements, since the overgeneralizations required are too capacious.
Yeah, originally the disease and the need for disease. Let me pull myself up in full screen again. Welcome, Cassie. Anybody that I didn't say hi to, Peter, I didn't say hi to you actually formally, or Chandra. I just started talking to you guys. So originally, disease was done for a different purpose, because people lived a lot longer in the past. So the disease was, you can hear what Ra was talking about, where it was a different potentiator. Now it's a potentiator for in a different way, since the life expectancy has gone far down in the human genome. That disease is now, but it's still propagated almost the same way. People don't realize that, because of originally it used to be more more propagated by your thought processes, by your choice. If you were in service to others, you were more prone to diseases than in people who were in service to self, and the other way around. If you were in service to self, you were more prone to diseases than if you're in service to others, because you were more harmonious with the matrix and other people when you're in service to others. These days, to mask that, as time has gone forward, evil people have realized that, so they have designed diseases to happen and propagated the diseases to happen, it's so that people would get them. And they've done that with adding 500 pounds of sugar to every ounce of food that you eat. The sugar is eating a high sugar diet, a high carb, high sugar diet will essentially kill you. And not a question, not a maybe, not a coincidence. If you eat nothing but candies, cakes, and pies, and ice cream, and the like, and everything that is sugar encrusted, you will die younger. You will die from diabetes, heart attack, stroke, cancer. You will. That is more effective and more of a certainty than smoking cigarettes and the nicotine problems that happen, or drinking alcohol. Okay. And the problems that happen, but the alcohol problems are the same as eating too much sugar, because the alcohol is fermented sugar. That's what is the alcohol. It's literally yeast and sugar fermenting the sugar and the yeast and transforming it into an alcohol. So instead of transforming it into a liquid sugar, it's turning it into an alcohol. So you take a fruit or something, and because you can make it with just yeast and sugar and a fruit, and you can turn that into an alcohol. So turn a fruit to it, you can take a bunch of oranges and turn it into an orange liqueur just by doing that, adding sugar to it, and then add a yeast to it, and then cover it, and it'll turn to alcohol. So, but I'm not advocating doing that, because you have to be careful what you're doing, because you could actually. That's why when they cook things in stills, when they're taking grain and making grain alcohol, they sometimes blow the still up because they're not doing it properly, or they do something a little bit wrong and it goes off like a rocket. In any case. So now what they're doing is they're selling all of that stuff to you and getting you addicted to it, so that everybody gets sick and everybody has issues, and that is distracting everybody away from being able to tell who is evil and who's not. Evil people originally were more prone to get sick from from sugars and things like that, and evil people would get diseases far more than good people would in life, because good people wouldn't have all of that stuff going on, and that your attitude and the way that you think and the way that you treat people is different. When you're angry and you're mean and you're stressed out all the time, then that changes your body chemistry, and those things that you have in your body that create the stressors, or that become stressors because of being in service to self, will get the cancer cells to activate inside your body. We all have cancer cells in our bodies. It's just a matter of activating them. So a high sugar diet, high salt, high sugar, high carb diet, and the wrong kinds of sugar will activate that cancer. Or if you smoke cigarettes, then your lungs or your throat or your mouth or other parts of your body. And then if you do both of those, then you're a person that's that way. These days, a lot of people that are evil will not eat a bunch of sugar and do all those things, and they'll live longer than other people. That's one of the reasons why they're doing that, to confuse people, because you can't see evil as readily and as easy. Evil hides right in front of you, and you can't tell it as much anymore as it was more definite. So disease was originally something that was different in what it did for society compared to today. Today, it's a byproduct of your consumption. Whereas before it was not. It was a byproduct of your polarization. And that's what Ra's talking about here. Okay, so, yeah, Cassie said service to others. Let me put it up on the screen. Service to others. What was that you said above that? From what I've learned, maybe I should have put that up first, right? From what I've learned, being in service of others too much, not living yourself, right? And self-care, well, that also causes a problem too. If you're being too much in service to others and not doing any self-care, then that'll cause problems as well, right? So you have to balance yourself, and this is why I said I should post that first and then this. So you have to balance yourself and take care of yourself and your bodily needs, so that you don't have those problems that you would have by doing that. So if you are too much down that road now, you can too much down the road of being in service to others, you will forget about yourself, and that will cause problems. And that's Cassie's point. That will cause problems in your physical body as well. And then you could end up with cancers and other diseases from that. So you have to balance yourself either way. And even if you balance yourself and you take care of yourself, if you eat nothing but candies, cakes, and pies and sweets, far more than you should, that could still activate those stressors, because sugar causes inflammation in your body, and so does salt. It causes your body to hold on to a bunch of water to try and absorb the sugar or the salt or both, and try to pass it out through your urine. So it'll create in your body inflammation, and that inflammation will get into your joints. Okay, it'll get into your joints and all of your body, and that'll cause problems with your body and the receptors in your body as well. So even if you're balancing yourself, but you eat like shit and you smoke and you drink alcohol and you do these things that is eating of the tree of life and living in the flesh, it will also do that. And that's what they've done here, is they've distracted you and given you these comfort foods. They always talk about, people always say that, what's your comfort food? That's propagating in your mind that you're supposed to eat something when you don't feel good. And people are going, I know that you eat something when you don't feel good, but what is your comfort food? So what do you eat when you don't feel good? Someone asked me that question just the other day, and I'm like, I don't have a comfort food. I never have. I don't have comfort food. There's nothing that I do when I'm upset. There's nothing that I do. I don't go like, I'm in a good mood, let's go get Chinese, or let's eat pizza. I'm in a bad mood, I need cookies, I need cake, I need pie. Somebody pissed me off at work, I had a bad day, I'm going to eat 2 pints of ice cream, or even a bowl of ice cream. I'm not that person. I never have been, in this lifetime anyways. But then again, I've been unveiled in this life. So if I'm having a bad day, or a day that I would consider difficult, because I don't rate days by whether my day was good or whether my day was bad. I honestly don't. And you wouldn't be able to tell the difference if I'm talking to you unless I let you know that, or decided to open up enough to where you would see what was going on in my day. So because it also propagating negative thoughts to other people by giving too much information to other people can then you can't control what other people are going to think about you in their head. So you don't want people feeling sorry for you either. You don't want to be the victim in other people's minds, because that propagates you in that place, right? So that's why when you see people that are a little bit more awake, and they see people that are constantly asking, I need help, somebody help me, my life is crap, and this is what's going on, please. And they're constantly doing that. They're not doing their own homework and looking within themselves. And there's some people will make a comment about that. That person is lost, and they continue to do that. Because they're now, unfortunately, they're propagating that thought process towards them, and in their mind, they're telling a story about them. We humans have this affinity for that. We make up stories in our minds when we see strangers on the street, and then we make up stories in our minds even with people that we know, and that changes things. You don't realize that is superimposing that thought process onto somebody. Right. So then you're seeing them as that, and you're focusing your energy on that. That person is not a good person. That person is a thief, or that person is a drug addict. That person is an alcoholic and they're hopeless. You're propagating that. Getting back to the concept of the song Zombie, that was what she was trying to say in that song, was that the only reason that was happening was because it was being propagated on them by the thought processes of the people. But she was doing that without looking at it from the point of view of the people who are fighting for their freedom. Do you see? And that's why that's where I have exception with that song, because she was looking at it from her perspective and not from the perspective of the people who had been fighting for almost 90 years, for 80 years for their freedom against a government that the government gave them back in 1916 the ability to vote themselves in or out of the United Kingdom, and the Irish people voted themselves out of the United Kingdom, and the English said, okay, so you voted yourself out, and then back in 2016 they were like, okay, so then you can rule yourself, and then shortly thereafter they tried to take control of them again, and the Irish people had to fight against that until 1997 when finally a deal was struck to get the English government to acknowledge them as that, but they said they would only do it if they would give up the counties in the north. And eventually they agreed to that so that they could keep what they voted for, that the English government gave them a vote for in 1916. So, but see, she was looking at it from a perspective of there shouldn't be a war and they should just do what they're told, and that's wrong, because that would, you can't look at a people who want to be free and say that. You have to look at things from their perspective. You can't look at it from only one perspective, and that's all she was doing in that song. But the song was sound from a standpoint of hatred begets hatred, and it becomes a cycle. She was right about that. But if that was her only intention, I would say that's a beautiful song and it's great. But I know the politics of what she was saying there because I've seen the interviews. So the politics of what she was saying there was those people that think that they should be free in Ireland need to just shut up and stop fighting because they belong to England. And that's what she was saying in that. And I know that it's wrong of me to say this because she's dead now and she couldn't defend herself. So some people might say that it's not true, but I watched an interview with her back when that song was popular in the 90s, before the freeing of Ireland or the English acknowledging them as a free nation. I saw the interview with her, and you can find it online, where she was basically saying they need to stop pretending they're free and get back under the English rule. So that's kind of annoying. But you have to realize that. What's that Cassie saying? What is pastina? Is that what you're saying, Cassie? I don't understand the question. Are you talking to me or somebody else? What is pastina? I don't know what you're saying there. Please specify that if I missed something, right? The last thing I have to get rid of is my smoking cigarettes. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. You were talking to me. You're talking to Denise. You're saying Italian penicillin. Yeah, teeny star pasta in soup. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was like, I don't think it was something I just said. You were talking to, it's a little, when you see like, I think when they do certain chicken noodle soups or, what is that other soup? I can't think of the name of it that has that in it. Maybe you said it. I guess that's what you said there, right? What you were talking about. So yeah, it's the little teeny star pasta that's in that soup, and I can't think of what the soup is called. Like the Germans call it soupish. I think the Portuguese call it that too. There's another name for it. I can't think of the name of it right now. But yeah, it's Italian penicillin. There's one that people refer to as Jewish penicillin. And it's very similar to that. It has a different name to it as well that starts with a P, and I think it's that word that they use, right? So Cassie said, rarely alcohol, no drugs, eating healthy, exercising, moving my body, meditating, journaling, being in service to others, and living your true self, let's hope, right? So, yeah, you have to realize that truly, if you cut out the carbs and the sugars, if you have an American diet and you're living in the United States, you're under the gun and behind the 8 ball, because almost everything that you eat is processed with sugar and salt, because that's what they do here, and the bad sugars and bad salts to keep you unhealthy in this country. So if you're not eating organic here or non-processed diet here, that's why people started going to the keto, however you say that, and vegan and vegetarian, because it's hard to process that stuff and put sugars in it. So you see that those people who eat that are thin because they're not eating the high carb, high sugar, high salt diet that everyone else is eating, right? If you go to a fast food restaurant and get a burger, get it without the bun, and you'll find that eating the rest of that burger, even beef, is going to be far better for you the second you throw that bread out that they're serving to you, because that bread is poison. That bread is 99% sugar and bad sugar. Literally, and all kinds of preservatives and shit in there that is going to cause inflammation in your body. Truly. So most places you can go to, you can now get it wrapped in lettuce, even here in the United States. Even though it's iceberg lettuce they wrap it in, which is the worst lettuce for you on the face of the earth. No offense to anybody who grows iceberg lettuce, but it is the most non-nutritional lettuce. However, it's better for you than the bun that you're eating. So you can get it without. Most people love the bun because it's something to hold on to. The truth is, When I make burgers at home, I don't use buns. And if I do, it's 100% whole wheat. And I look at the ingredients before I buy something and read the ingredients. If it says enriched wheat flour on there, the enrichment is sugar and salt in that order. So you'll have a lot of sugar. There was something that Brooke she was eating a cheesecake, and she sent me it, and it was like 32 grams of sugar. That was per serving. And I was like, oh my God, I would be able to get maybe one fork of that, and I couldn't eat any more. There's just too much sugar in it. And she's laughing and said, yeah, I know I'm going to be spinning out of control after eating that. Right? But I love cheesecake. But if you make cheesecake yourself, you can lower the amount of sugar that you put in it. I used to make my own Kahlua. Kahlua is mostly sugar because it's alcohol and coffee with vanilla bean in it. And I was making my own, and I would put like less than a third of the sugar in it, and it was just as tasty and it was just as good. Doesn't have to have, and it had the same amount of alcohol. Doesn't have to have all the sugar in it. But they pound you with sugar because they know it causes inflammation, causes you to get fatter, and eventually that wears out your system, your endocrine system. Your heart gets taxed because there's fat around it. Your lungs don't work right because there's fat around it. All of your arteries get clogged because there's fat in them and around them. All of that has to do with your diet and what you're doing in your life. So you have to realize that. And so disease had a very, very different, right? So Peter, different reason in the past than now. Peter said burgers in the middle of rice cakes are nice. I didn't think about that. So Peter's saying that using rice cakes as the bun and eating a burger with rice cakes, not a bad idea, Peter. We do that with low carb tortillas here, flour tortilla, low carb flour tortilla, and we wrap our chicken and beef burgers that way and eat them like that. And that's a better alternative than that big thick bun that they give you in a restaurant. Or I just take the bun and throw it off the plate, and then I eat the depending on the bun that it is and the style of bread. Then I just cut that out. So I tell people, if you're going to go to a fast food restaurant, McDonald's, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Burger King, and the like here in the United States, you'd be better to order 2 burgers, throw the buns away, and then eat the burgers with a fork and knife than you would to eat the bread. Okay. Yeah, Reese, Reese said the wife is type 1 diabetic. So she tracks her carbs and sugar. You have to. Yeah, I was type 2. You'd be amazed what's loaded up. What it is truly. And you guys are in Australia, and you still have to watch what's going on. And your food is far better by 80% than American food as far as the amount of sugar and salt. I mean, for instance, right now, more than 56% of the population of America is type 2 diabetic. That is the highest diabetes. In fact, there's more people in America that are type 2 diabetic than the entire rest of the planet combined. Okay, think about that. So, and I was type 2 diabetic, but it was because I drank a fifth of vodka a day, fifth of gin or a fifth of vodka every single day, and then ate carbs on top of it. But I was starting to eat as if I was type 2 diabetic, but I was still drinking, and I kept my blood sugar level. The normal blood sugar level is at when your A1C comes in at 5.5 or below, means that you're not diabetic or pre-diabetic at all. So when I was drinking alcohol every day, I would test at about 5.7 to 6. So I was just on the side of being type 2 diabetic. But the only reason it wasn't over 7 was because I was not eating regular food. I was eating as if I was diabetic. And then I stopped drinking alcohol 3 years ago last week. Today's the 14th, 3 years ago on the 3rd of March. I instantly went down to 5.5 and below, and because I was still eating as if I were diabetic. And then that stayed that way ever since now. So I'm no longer, but the hospitals will currently only say that my diabetes is under control, but I haven't taken the medication in 2.5 years. Right. So I'm literally not taking any medication for diabetes, and I'm still registering as not diabetic. But because they're drug dealers in this country, until this regime, possibly they'll change that, they still will not designate me as free of diabetes because they want me on the medication. because people don't normally go backwards. Normally, if you become type 2 diabetic, you end up becoming type 1 diabetic in the United States because most people just continue eating all of the sugars and just take the medicine. And then that kills their immune system. And eventually the gland that secretes insulin stops functioning because it's overwhelmed and your body's not even accepting insulin anyways because it's insulin resistant. Then you end up having to have insulin shots. So unless you change your ways, that disease will kill you. So you have to change what you eat and pay attention. So your wife is smart for counting the carbs and counting the sugar, Reese, because of that, because she doesn't have the gland. If she's type 1, her gland does not secrete. Her body doesn't make insulin. So she has to take shots. So she was either born with a defect and it died, more than likely, or something else happened that caused that to happen for her. I don't know her history, so I don't know what it is. Usually if someone's type 1 and they're not age 60 or above or 50 or above, chances are, and an American, chances are they had a problem genetically and their gland died on them and they ended up diabetic because of it. So Deborah Anderson, welcome. All right, so I'm going to go back to Raw. Let me put this back up in full screen and we'll go ahead and get Raw started again. So disease was different in the past than it is today, and its function was different in the past before the veiling, even after the veiling. But however, when the human race has fallen the way it has and gotten stuck in this matrix the way it has in this country, in this world, the way it is currently, and specifically in the United States, worsely than other places, the evil people that are controlling this planet have propagated disease and pushed it on everybody in a way that has made it to where disease just happens to you because of all the crap that you're putting in your bodies. Okay, let's continue here.
Question 83.9. Questioner, was there any uniformity or like functions of societies or social organizations prior to the veil? Answer, I am Ra. The third density is, by its very fiber, a societal one. There are societies wherever there are entities conscious of the self and conscious of other selves and possessed with intelligence adequate to process information indicating the benefits of communal blending of energies. The structures of society before as after veiling were various. However, the societies before veiling did not depend in any case upon the intentional enslavement of some for the benefit of others, this not being seen to be a possibility when all are seen as one. There was, however, the requisite amount of disharmony to produce various experiments in what you may call governmental or societal structures. Question 83.10. Questioner, in our present illusion we have undoubtedly lost sight of the techniques of enslavement that are used since we are so far departed from the pre-veil experience. I am sure that many of service to others orientation are using techniques of enslavement even though they are not aware that these are techniques of enslavement simply because they have been evolved over so long a period of time and we are so deep into the illusion. Is this not correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is incorrect. Question 83.11. Questioner, then you say that there are no cases where those who are of a service to others orientation are using techniques of enslavement that have grown as a result of the evolution of our social structures. Is this what you mean? Answer, I am Ra. It was our understanding that your query concerned conditions before the veiling. There was no unconscious slavery, as you call this condition, at that period. At the present space-time the conditions of well-meant and unintentional slavery are so numerous that it beggars our ability to enumerate them.
All right, then we'll go to the next video, which will continue that session. After this module, we'll have to wait for her here and skip. I apologize for that, but that's the worst that we have to worry about for this.
Question 83.12. Questioner, then for a service to others-oriented entity at this time meditation upon the nature of these little expected forms of slavery might be productive in polarization, I would think. Am I correct? Answer, I am Ra. You are quite correct. Question 83.13. Questioner, I would say that a very high percentage of the laws and restrictions within what we call our legal system are of a nature of enslavement of which I just spoke. Would you agree with this? Answer, I am Ra. It is a necessary balance to the intention of law, which is to protect, that the result would encompass an equal distortion towards imprisonment. Therefore, we may say that your supposition is correct. This is not to denigrate those who, in green and blue-ray energies, sought to free a peaceable people from the bonds of chaos, but only to point out the inevitable consequences of codification of response, which does not recognize the uniqueness of each and every situation within your experience.
Right. So, yeah, now it's a good, getting back, Joanne said, yeah, you were pre-diabetic, right? You told you were pre-diabetic and you changed your food and dropped all your carbs, and then you were no longer on that spectrum. But then they say, no, we want to keep an eye on you. Yeah, because they can charge your medical more money. So they're getting money for it. And if they can get you on the medication, then they'll prescribe it to you and have you on it for the rest of your life. And if you're taking the medication like metformin, I won't talk about it too much because the algorithm will get after me. But metformin will then kill your immune system to where it will no longer make the insulin. So you're insulin resistant, and the metformin is supposed to help you, but it'll actually turn off the receptors in your body that will make your body make insulin. So by taking metformin long enough, which they're telling you is supposed to help you, it's actually hindering you, and then eventually you'll end up type 1 diabetic. And some people say that's just a conspiracy theory, but in this country, it seems to be a conspiracy fact, not conspiracy theory, right? So yeah, so then getting to the question of what Don was talking about. Don's posing some really good questions here when it comes to the manipulation of the matrix and enslavement of people. And that's what I was getting at with talking about how they propagate that and the sugars and all of that stuff to create more disease, because that puts you in fear and what's easier to control, but someone who is sick or someone that is living in fear, or both. So if they can create all this inflammation in you, you don't feel good, you become sick. And if you become sick and they can keep you staying sick, then they can control you. And then if they have you on medication, which like Reese was talking about before with the jab, when you get that, it changes your DNA in some way. And what exactly is the ramifications of that? That's another story we don't want to get involved in here, because the algorithm will boot me off the air for saying it, even though we're finding out around the world that it is actually true, what they're stating about that. Okay, so you have to look at that, right? Service to others in unconscious slavery, Cassie's right. Yes. So it's a very good question that was brought up, and what they're talking about, because what they're doing is that's the modus operandi here, and you're going to hear Raw talk about that, of the Orion Crusaders, the Anunnaki, right? What you guys hear, I guess I can put myself up on the screen for a second so you can see me talking. That is their modus operandi, have you living in fear. So they're manipulating you to get you living in fear. And how do they get you in fear? Everything on the programming on television, the news, and everything that you read is propagating fear. The tone of their voice is propagating fear. And then if you have a lot of inflammation because you're eating all the foods they're telling you to eat because they're sweet and they're beautiful, they taste good, and they're, oh my God, this is great. You blow up, you get fat. The fat causes inflammation. The fat causes problems, weighs on your endocrine system. Then it causes inflammation from the sugar and the salt that you have in your body that is absorbing more liquid and storing it as fat, trying to push it away from your body to protect your body. It turns to fat, and then you have too much weight. It screws up your joints. You're in pain. It's this downward spiral, and then you start living in fear. You're going to the doctor, and they're like, you need this medication and that medication. The medications screw with you and get you all screwy. All of that is a blind manipulation that they're doing to you, that is causing you to then think the way they want you to think. You're in an easier, controllable situation in your mind, mentally, physically. You're under their control because they're manipulating you with the foods that you eat and everything you see. And now you have to take their medication, and then that is killing you. And not fixing the problem. It's a Band-Aid so you don't notice that you're fat and overweight and dying and have inflammation, because you're taking painkillers so you don't feel the inflammation, taking water pills so that you're just peeing out with water. But why is your body holding on to water to begin with? So instead of fixing those reasons, why am I fat? Why am I have water in my system? Why do I have the inflammation? Instead of fixing why all that's going on, they're just giving you medication that makes you feel good. Meanwhile, you get fatter and fatter, and eventually you die from a stroke, a heart attack, or something, cancer or something, dealing with the things that you could have changed by changing your eating habits, changing your drinking habits, eating better food, getting more exercise, burning off those calories, getting your body metabolism working properly so that you expel the waste in the proper manner. And that's why when they tell you, here's a drug that with diet and exercise will do good for you. Well, with diet and exercise, you don't need that drug. So they tell you they give you a drug, and then they say with diet and proper diet and exercise, you're going to lose weight. Well, you're going to lose that weight with the proper diet and exercise without that drug. But they'll sell you on the drug and you'll believe the drug did it. But they'll tell you this drug won't work unless you eat properly and exercise. So when you eat properly and exercise, they go, look at that drug did for you. Here, keep taking it and stay, eating right and exercising, but keep taking the drug. You don't realize unless you ignore them that without the drug, by changing your diet and exercising, eating right and exercising so your body chemistry is working properly, you get rid of that weight anyways, and you become healthy. You don't need that drug to do it. But they convince you that it's the drug that's doing it, and then you stay on the drug for the rest of your life, and they got you hooked on a drug, and you're paying them money. You're like, oh, I'm not paying very much out of pocket, but your insurance company is paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And the doctor that has you on that drug is getting 10% of that hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for every person that they have on that medication. And if you don't think that's real, look it up. It is real. Talk to somebody that you know that is a doctor. If they're not in service to others, they'll tell you absolutely we make them a lot of money off of that. All right, let's continue here. So you have to realize that you're being enslaved by proxy without your knowledge, and they're doing this to you with everything. So it's not just one thing they're doing to you; it's everything that they're doing to you. And this is what Dawn is asking about, and Raw is starting to talk about.
Question 83.14. Questioner, is the veil supposed to be what I would call semi-permeable? Answer, I am Ra. The veil is indeed so.
Yeah, so the veil is there. You're supposed to be able to see past the veil. It's not. That's why he was saying semi-permeable. If it was impermeable, you wouldn't be able to penetrate it. But it's semi-permeable, meaning you can push through it. You can see past it. You can see through it. You can then disperse it. But you have to realize that that's the first step in avoiding a trap, is knowing of its existence. To know that the veil is a trap is to know how to pierce the veil, and to start realizing that you can pierce the veil is the beginning of you piercing the veil and becoming awake.
Question 83.15. Questioner, what techniques and methods of penetration of the veil were planned, and are there any others that have occurred other than those planned? Answer, I am Ra. There were none planned by the first great experiment. As all experiments, this rested upon the nakedness of hypothesis. The outcome was unknown. It was discovered, experientially and empirically, that there were as many ways to penetrate the veil as the imagination of mind, body, spirit complexes could provide. The desire of mind, body, spirit complexes to know that which was unknown drew to them the dreaming and the gradual opening to the seeker of all of the balancing mechanisms leading to adaptitude and communication with teach learners which could pierce this veil. The various and manifested activities of the self were found to be productive in some degree of penetration of the veil. In general, we may say that by far the most vivid and even extravagant opportunities for the piercing of the veil are a result of the interaction of polarized entities. Question 83.16. Questioner, could you expand on what you mean by that interaction of polarized entities in piercing the veil? Answer, I am Ra. We shall state two items of note. The first is the extreme potential for polarization in the relationship of two polarized entities which have embarked upon the service to others path, or, in some few cases, the service to self path. Secondly, we would note that effect which we have learned to call the doubling effect. Those of like mind which together seek shall far more surely find. Question 83.17. Questioner, specifically, by what process would, in the first case, two polarized entities attempt to penetrate the veil, whether they be positively or negatively polarized? By what technique would they penetrate the veil? Answer, I am Ra. The penetration of the veil may be seen to begin to have its roots in the gestation of green ray activity, that all compassionate love which demands no return. If this path is followed, the higher energy centers shall be activated and crystallized until the adept is born. Within the adept is the potential for dismantling the veil to a greater or lesser extent that all may be seen again as one. The other self is primary catalyst in this particular path to the piercing of the veil, if you would call it that.
Right. So literally in that respect, it just being in service to others and literally being that way and starting your ascension in an upwardly manner as being in service to others will then propagate that piercing of the veil. It is just that easy, even though it sounds really hard. It's harder to surrender to that ideology than it is to actually do it, right? So literally, as you do that, just like he says here, this is why I like doing this, because I can see the words on the screen and actually read that, right? So he says, if this path is followed, the higher energy centers shall be activated, higher energy centers, meaning the upper three chakras, and crystalline until the adept is born, meaning with the adept and the potential of dismantling the veil. So you will crystallize the upper three chakras, and then you will solidify yourself at that point into that's the adept being born. That's when you call in the Christian pantheon, you hear them being saying that you're born again. When you're the part of being born again is the part of solidifying the path that you're on as being in service to others, and then you start to crystallize the upper three chakras, and then something in you changes, and you start perceiving the world in a different way. And that happens when you go, wow, wait a minute, something has changed in me. I feel like I'm a different person, but yet I'm the same person. And that's usually when your upper three chakras start to crystalline, because now you're at that point of no return. You've passed the point of no return. Now you are in service to others. You have made that determination, and the universe knows that. I guess I should turn my camera off for a second so while I'm saying this part. And the universe knows that you have made that determination, and you're on that path now. You that is the path. You've decided to not go back. You're not going to go back. And before you do that and start activating those upper three chakras, you can always, in being in service to self, you can always change and become in service to others. But once you do, there will be a definite change that you're aware of in your life, where you will go, wow, something's different. Something's different about me, and I'm seeing things different around the world. When I'm looking out through these eyes, it just seems that everything's different. It's in a weird way, but not in a negative. That's when the universe has acknowledged for you that you have decided to stay on the path of being in service to others. And now it's, and the other way around, it happens as well. But that's solidifying the lower chakras, and there's a different euphoric effect that happens there. But the one for in service to others is literally you go, something has changed within me. I feel like I've changed, and the way I see the world is different, and I'm not exactly sure why. That is, the upper three chakras are now starting to crystalline, and you're moving more into your higher self and seeing things through the eyes of your higher self, being in service to others. And that effect never changes. You always notice that it's there for the rest of your life, but you get more used to it than when you first see it. Because you first see it and you're like, I know that I'm still me, but something's changed. And I can feel it. Something's different. And the way people are looking at me is different. The way I'm looking at people is different. It's because you're perceiving things now from your third eye perspective of being in service to others, as well as the two eyes that you have here. So you're actually starting to move to where you're becoming conscious again. So it's, you become self-aware when you become a human, then you become self-aware as a soul when you hit that plateau. And you start realizing you as your higher self in whatever guise you have now chosen, being in service to others or in service to self. And the feeling, again, is different. And I'm not going to get involved in what the other side feels like, but you'll know it. You'll know the difference. So when that happens to you, you have to come to that realization that at that point you've made that determination and you've made that struggle and you've wriggled your way loose, and now you're starting to unveil. And the rest of the veiling goes away quickly at that point, because the universe is now rewarding you with the knowledge of, I have actually made it to the point of past the point of no return. I am now on the path of being in service to others. fully, and the universe knows that. You can't fool the universe. So once you get to that, things change, and a peace and calm is now present in you that wasn't there before, and you're like, wow, this is weird, because you're not fighting as much to pull yourself away from the ego and the thinking mind. It's still there, but you're not fighting as much in doing that. So that actually happens, and when that happens, you'll see that, and you literally start saying, what is it that's different about me? Why is it that people are looking at me different? I don't understand. What it's weird, but it's not in negative. Literally, you've started to solidify the upper three chakras. The universe is now telling you, giving you that information, and you're now perceiving there's a calm and a peace that comes over you in a weird way, and you perceive the world completely different, and the world perceives you differently. So that is that point of no return has now been passed, and you're perceiving yourself as your higher self. So that's being born again. So because when you're born, when you become self-aware, is when you start here. And then when you have that, what the Christians call being born again, and now they just say you're baptized and you're born again, that's not actually what that means. So to be born again is literally when you're born again into your higher self. And that's when you literally, there's that moment. And that's where it says, then, and God will come as a thief in the night. Because literally you'll go to sleep one night, you'll wake up the next morning, and you'll go, wow, this is weird. Like I'm seeing everything seems different, and there's a weird energy here. And then people are looking at me differently, and they're all looking and they're seeing me. And it's you don't understand that. And if you don't have somebody that can help you with that, you'll get used to it and figure it out. But if you have somebody that can help you with that, then we'll say to you, you're starting to see things as your higher self from that perspective. Because what's happened is you've started to solidify those upper chakras, and you've now moved into the place of, I am actually in service to self, or in service to others now, or in service to self. And like I said, there's a big difference in what you feel in those energies. And when you're in service to self at that point, you know that self-serving is what's happening. When you're in service to others, you're still not quite sure, but that's the veiling is now being very pierced, and it happens very quickly. And you're actually starting to see more with your third eye, and you're associating yourself with your higher self instead of associating yourself with this physical body. And so you feel out of body slightly, and that's kind of where you reside. And I always tell everybody, get used to that feeling, because it's not going to go away. That just gets better when you do that. And that's what Ra's talking about here is moving past that point and solidifying, crystallizing those chakras. And that's literally, you've gone past that. I can't say this enough. That means literally you've gone past that seminal point. The universe is aware of that, and you're not going to go back on your course. The only way to go back on your course, if you're in service to self, you can go back on course anytime. But the people who are in service to others rarely ever will then reverse course and become self-serving. When they reach that plateau and they start seeing the world that way, that's right after they start seeing everything as being beautiful. And then the next thing you know, everything seems completely different in this, because you're actually seeing it through the eyes of your higher self, no longer the flesh pain body. You're now perceiving yourself. That's being born again. You're perceiving yourself as your higher self. And people around you will start seeing that. They may not know it, because they might be still asleep and veiled, but they're going to look at you, and they're going to see that you have a greater light than before. And you'll find that the nature snubs you far less than it would before that point. And that point is reached only by when you fully activate those upper three chakras and move into the place of, I am in service to others, and the universe says, yes, you are, and there's no fooling, and this is where you're going to be from the rest of your path. That's the born again. That's the God returning as a thief in the night. That's literally, you wake up one day and you're awake, and then you have to realize that you're awake. It takes a little bit of time for you to realize, wow, wait a minute, I am awake, because you're still thinking in terms of being living in the flesh, and it takes you a little bit to get acclimated to living in the spirit. And that's okay. There's that time that is a buffer. If you don't have somebody to help guide you, it takes a little bit longer. But if you do, that takes a little bit less. And then there's this peace and calm that just comes over you, and it stays there. Even when you get caught in the matrix, you quickly can pull yourself back out of that. Okay, let's continue with Ra. But that's what Ra is describing right here. So let me put that back up on the screen here. And that's what Ra is talking about right here, is that, and at the end the other self is primary catalyst in this particular path to the piercing of the veil, if you would call it that. That's exactly what he's talking about here. So Dawn, I'm not sure what Dawn's question next will be. It looks like, what is the mechanism of the very first veiling process? So instead of realizing the potential of that statement that Rod just made, he starts going back to the catalyst again on that. But that's because he's a scientist. So let's continue here.
Question 83.18. Questioner, what was the mechanism of the very first veiling process? I don't know if you can answer that. Would you try to answer that? Answer, I am Ra. The mechanism of the veiling between the conscious and unconscious portions of the mind was a declaration that the mind was complex. This, in turn, caused the body and the spirit to become complex. Question 83.19. Questioner, would you give me an example of a complex activity of the body that we have now and how it was not complex prior to the veil? Answer, I am Ra. Prior to the great experiment, the mind, body, spirit was capable of controlling the pressure of blood in the veins, the beating of the organ you call the heart, the intensity of the sensation known.
Right, and then let me stop there because Cassie has a good point. She said, I believe that people need to know that you have multiple awakening levels of understanding as we go through the process. Correct, right? And I didn't preface that with that because you do. There are many levels of awakeness, that being one of them, but that being one of the largest ones that you will feel. And then there's more after that, but that being one of the more larger ones that you will feel. That you, when you look around at the world and you go, wait a minute, something has drastically changed in me, and I feel that, and it's just weird, but I don't know what it is. That realization, when it doesn't go away as much as you think it should, then you start to realize that that's a permanent fixture, and then it becomes easier. And it's just like Joanne was saying, it's a beautiful, amazing process that happens. That peace within feeling that you get from that is amazing. But there are many levels, like Cassie said, many levels of awakeness that you have, that you go through, right? Jamie, welcome. Joanne, welcome. I didn't say hi when you got here. Welcome. I didn't even think I said hi to Cassie when she got here. Fiona, welcome. Everybody's showing up at the time when the show would have started, right? Or thereabouts. So because we're an hour earlier, right? So, okay, let me continue here with what Raw is asking or talking about here, or what Dawn is asking about here. And we'll go forward here.
To you as pain, and all the functions now understood to be involuntary or unconscious. Question 83.20. Questioner, when the veiling process originally took place, then, it seems that the logos must have had a list of those functions that would become unconscious and those that would remain consciously controlled. I am assuming that if this occurred, there was good reason for these divisions. Am I in any way correct on this? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 83.21. Questioner, would you correct me, please? Answer, I am Ra. There were many experiments whereby various of the functions or distortions of the body complex were veiled and others not. A large number of these experiments resulted in non-viable body complexes or those only marginally viable. For instance, it is not a survival-oriented mechanism for the nerve receptors to blank out unconsciously any distortions towards pain. Question 83.22. Questioner, before the veil the mind could blank out pain. I assume then that the function of the pain at that time was to signal the body to assume a different configuration so that the source of the pain would leave, and then the pain could be eliminated mentally. Is that correct? And was there another function for the pain prior to the veiling? Answer, I am Ra. Your assumption is correct. The function of pain at that time was as the warning of the fire alarm to those not smelling the smoke. Question 83.23. Questioner, then let's say that an entity at that time burnt its hand due to carelessness. It would immediately remove its hand from the burning object and then, in order to not feel the pain anymore, its mind would cut the pain off until healing had taken place. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. Question 83.24. Questioner, we would look at this in our present illusion as an elimination of a certain amount of catalyst that would produce an acceleration in our evolution. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. The attitude towards pain varies from mind-body-spirit complex to mind-body-spirit complex. Your verbalization of attitude towards the distortion known as pain is one productive of helpful distortions as regards the process of evolution. Question 83.25. Questioner, what I was trying to indicate was that the plan of the logos unveiling the conscious from the unconscious mind in such a way that pain could not so easily be controlled would have created a system of catalyst that was not previously usable. Is this generally correct? Answer, I am Ra. Yes.
See, so you have to realize that everything has changed in what's happening here. Pain was a different catalyst than it is now in the pain body. That's why we call it the pain body, right? Because pain it was a different catalyst before. And as we have evolved or devolved, as it were, things have changed. So the different diseases are now different. What they potentiate on Earth to people. Pain is now different in what it potentiates to people in the pain body because of the disease and the inflammation. It has now evolved to the matrix here to a different set of rules for what's going on. We're rewriting that and fixing that, but it's going to take some time to do that. So the first thing we have to do is gain control of the people who are in control of the matrix, gain control of the food products and gain control of the programming and that sort of stuff that's going on, which is happening now around the world. Once we can gain control of that, we're also working on the minds of people to help free the minds of people by giving them the tools on the internet, using the internet to our advantage around the world. And this is what I was talking about earlier, back in the 80s and the 90s, that we started setting up, and then especially going through just before COVID and going through COVID, in solidifying these coalitions around the world to start giving this information out to the world at this time to help make changes to the world with the knowledge that these people need. And then the realignment that has happened because of COVID and the more draconian the measures by the people that were trying to take control of the world, the more it realigned people. Even the people that were sympathetic to them have now gone, wait a minute, no. Because of that, because of what they were doing, the more draconian someone is in using that vernacular, the more that they'll realign everybody against them. That's for that reason that there is no real alien invasion. If you see one that happens, it's not a real alien invasion because there is a quarantine over this solar system. So there won't be an alien armada that shows up and is able to penetrate Earth and come down here to take over. And that's why we tell people, be careful, because if there is something like that appears in the sky, it's fake. It's a lie, and it is actually the deep state pretending to be aliens because they're trying to take control of the Earth, because they're desperate. And they've been trying to roll that out, or holding that over the heads of everybody as something they can roll out. But there's too many people that have come through that are on the younger generation that they're aware of that, and they're like, yeah, no, they couldn't fool us. So the truth is that the education that we've been giving people and giving them access to is working with a younger generation to where they're not buying into the fear mongering that they keep trying to sell to everybody else. And why is that? They don't watch television. They don't watch legacy news media. They don't watch any of that stuff, so they don't have control over them. And they know that. It used to be very easy to control the population of the Earth because there was only 4 channels on the air in every country. Now there's more than 10,000 channels for people to get, and they don't control all of them. So because of that, they're pissed off. That's why in the United States they're trying to ban TikTok, because TikTok is not controlled by the oligarchs who are trying to control the United States and Europe. It's controlled by the Chinese. So they're mad at the Chinese because they're more popular than all of their apps combined in the United States. There's more people in the United States that have TikTok on their phone than there is all the other apps that are owned by Google and Facebook and Meta and the like combined. So that's why they were trying to ban it. It's not that they're doing something, the Chinese are doing something that the American companies aren't doing, the European companies aren't doing. They're doing the exact same thing. The Chinese company that owns TikTok is doing the exact same thing. Difference is they're not giving access to those oligarchs to control the minds of the people here. That's the difference, right? That's the real difference. Okay, so let's continue. Let me pull this back up on the screen here, and let's continue with Ra.
Question 83.26. Questioner, in some cases it seems that this use of catalyst is almost in a runaway condition for some entities in that they are experiencing much more pain than they can make good use of as far as catalytic nature would be considered. Could you comment on that? Answer, I am Ra. This shall be the last query of this working of a full length. You may see, in some cases, an entity which, either by pre-incarnative choice or by constant reprogramming while in incarnation, has developed an iserient program of catalyst. Such an entity is quite desirous of using the catalyst and has determined to its own satisfaction that what you may call the large board needs to be applied to the forehead in order to obtain the attention of the self. In these cases it may indeed seem a great waste of the catalyst of pain, and a distortion towards feeling the tragedy of so much pain may be experienced by the other self. However, it is well to hope that the other self is grasping that which it has gone to some trouble to offer itself, that is, the catalyst which it desires to use for the purpose of evolution. May we ask if there are any brief queries at this time? Question 83.27. Questioner, I noticed you started this session with "I communicate now," and you usually use "we communicate now." Is there any significance or difference with respect to that? And then is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Answer, I am Ra. We am Ra. You may see the grammatical difficulties of your linguistic structure in dealing with the social memory complex. There is no distinction between the first person singular and plural in your language when pertaining to Ra. We offer the following not to infringe upon your free will, but because this instrument has specifically requested information as to its maintenance, and the support group does so at this querying. We may suggest that the instrument has two areas of potential distortion, both of which may be aided in the bodily sense by the ingestion of those things which seem to the instrument to be desirable. We do not suggest any hard and fast rulings of diet, although we may suggest the virtue of the liquids. The instrument has an increasing ability to sense that which will aid its bodily complex. It is being aided by affirmations and also by the light, which is the food of the density of resting. We may ask the support group to monitor the instrument as always, so that in the case of the desire for the more complex proteins, that which is the least distorted might be offered to the bodily complex, which is indeed at this time potentially capable of greatly increased distortion. I am Ra. We thank you, my friends, for your continued conscientiousness in the fulfilling of your manifestation of desire to serve others. You are conscientious. The appurtenances are quite well aligned. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing merrily in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Okay, so that'll automatically start session 84. So we'll go ahead and let that play to the end right here, and it'll automatically start to go to the next session. So that was session 83, April 5th, 1982, the Law of One. So as soon as that ends here, it should automatically switch. And we have to go. That's cool looking. That's a cool bracelet. Okay, good Viking bracelet right there. Session 84, April 14th.
I am Ra.
1982.
I greet you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 84.1. Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. The physical complex energy level of the instrument is in sizable deficit. The vital energies are well. Question 84.2. Questioner, in the last session you mentioned the least distorted complex protein for the instrument, since its body complex was capable of greatly increased distortion. Would you define the protein of which you spoke, and in which direction is the increased distortion, towards health or ill health? Answer, I am Ra. We were, in the cautionary statement about complex protein, referring to the distortions of the animal protein which has been slaughtered and preservatives added in order to maintain the acceptability to your peoples of this non-living, physical material. It is well to attempt to find those items which are fresh and of the best quality possible in order to avoid increasing this particular entity's distortions, which may be loosely termed allergic. We were speaking of the distortion towards disease which is potential at this space-time.
So now we're talking about ascension food, correct? So literally, this is what I was talking about earlier, where you have to start looking at the food that you're eating to feed things properly in your body, to keep your body to where it's activating all your chakras and balancing. So you have to change the foods that you eat away from the foods that evil people are trying to force on you to stay in that place. So as long as you're eating properly and you're eating organics if you can, or even growing your own food that you can eat if you can, stay away from processed foods, stay away from restaurants and fast foods unless you know that they're fixing things properly, or you're eating healthy even when you go there to those places. You'll find that homemade food has better energy than food from a fast food restaurant being cooked by a teenager or somebody in their early 20s who have the job because they have to have it, or dad makes them have the job and they don't really care, and their energy is crap, get it out as fast as possible. You're going to find that that's low energy food. And if you were to take and do the same thing, make the same burger or whatever yourself at home, you're going to find that the energy is going to be completely different for a number of reasons. One, you care about the things that you're doing. If you're cooking the food, you're adding your energy to it, and that energy gets absorbed by the food. Two, it's fresher materials that you're using. Three, it has less sugar. Four, it has less salt. Five, all of that combined together is going to be a higher vibrational energy than than what you get from a stranger, unless it's a stranger that if you go to a place where they're a chef or something, they're very proud of what they do, and you're going to get good food there as well. But if you go to a place where people are cooking there because they have to, I don't care, I just lose my job, whatever, man, I just got to get through the day because dad's making me get a job. You're going to find that the energy to the food that you're eating is going to be like 0 to none, and the quality of the food is going to be crap, and the amount of sugar and inflammation you're going to get from that food is going to be very high. So this is why we tell people eat better food and make your own stuff. Stop being so lazy. I don't have enough time in the day. I don't have enough energy. You don't have enough time in the day because you're spending all your time driving to a fast food restaurant and sitting in there waiting in line to get your food, or going inside and waiting in line to get your food, and then you're eating crap food. You don't have, you would have the time to cook your own food if you were doing that. You would also have the energy to cook your own food if you were eating better. So if you eat better and you're cooking your own food, you're going to find that you have more energy, and so therefore you're going to spend more time doing that. And if you're not getting in the car and driving somewhere, or ordering food and having somebody deliver it to you while you're doing other things, you're getting crap food that has low energy delivered by somebody who's not charging you with any good energy. Here you go. This is my job, and you have your food. Have a nice day, and get out of here and take off. Then you're going to notice the difference. And I cannot stress that enough. And anybody who eats healthy, they'll tell you the same thing. You cannot know that difference until you know it. And when you know it, you'll go, why did I ever go back to that? And once you get away from that processed food and you go back and you eat something, you're like, how did I eat this? Oh my God, blah, it doesn't even taste good. Right. So you have to realize that. So the more processed the food, the lower the energy vibration is of that food. So the crappier the energy is, the crappier your body's going to react to it. Your body's going to start acting like that. That's why they say you are what you eat. If you eat shit food, you're shit. If you eat good food, you're good. You're good. So you have to realize that. You have to realize that about it and everything. So the decisions that you make are going to determine, and the energy that you put in your body is the energy that you're going to become and use. Let's continue here.
Question 84.3. Questioner, what disease in particular were you speaking of, and what would be its cause? Answer, I am Ra. One disease, as you call this distortion, is that of the arthritis and the lupus erythematosus. The cause of this complex of distortions is, at base, pre-incarnative. We refrain from determining the other distortion potential at this space-time due to our desire to maintain the free will of this group. Affirmations may yet cause this difficulty to resolve itself. Therefore, we simply encourage the general care with the diet, with the instructions about allergy, as you call this quite complex distortion of the mind and body complexes. Question 84.4. Questioner, the instrument asked the following question. Ra has implied that the instrument is on the path of martyrdom, but since we all die, are we not all martyred to something? And when, if ever, does martyrdom partake of wisdom? Answer, I am Ra. This is a thoughtful query. Let us use as exemplar the one known as Jehoshua. This entity incarnated with the plan of martyrdom. There is no wisdom in this plan, but rather understanding and compassion extended to its fullest perfection. The one known as Jehoshua would have been less than fully understanding of its course had it chosen to follow its will at any space-time during its teachings. Several times, as you call this measure, this entity had the possibility of moving towards the martyr's place, which was, for that martyr, Jerusalem. Yet in meditation this entity stated time and again, "It is not yet the hour." The entity could also have, when the hour came, walked another path. Its incarnation would then have been prolonged, but the path for which it incarnated somewhat confused. Thusly, one may observe the greatest amount of understanding of which this entity was indeed capable taking place as the entity in meditation felt and knew that the hour had come for that to be fulfilled which was its incarnation. It is indeed so that all mind, body, spirit complexes shall die to the third density illusion, that is, that each yellow ray physical complex body shall cease to be viable. It is a misnomer to, for this reason alone, call each mind, body, spirit complex a martyr, for this term is reserved for those who lay down their lives for the service they may provide to others. We may encourage meditation upon the functions of the will. Question 84.5. Questioner, could you make any suggestions about the instrument's feet or how they got in the bad shape that they are in, and if...
All right, I'll be right back. I'm going to let this play. I got to run to the restroom real quick. Drinking a lot of coffee and water today. I apologize for that. So I'll let this play for you, and I'll be right back.
Alternating the shoes would help. Answer, I am Ra. The distortion referred to above, that is, the complex of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis and lupus erythematosus acts in such a way as to cause various portions of the body complex to become distorted in the way in which the instrument's pedal appendages are now distorted. We may suggest care in resumption of the exercise, but determination as well. The alternation of footwear shall prove efficacious. The undergarment for the feet, which you call the anklet, should be of a softer and finer material than is now being used, and should, if possible, conform more to the outline of those appendages upon which it is placed. This should provide a more efficient aid to the cushioning of these appendages. We may further suggest that the same immersion in the waters which is helpful to the general distortion is, in general, helpful to this specific distortion as well. However, the injury which has been sustained in the metatarsal region of the right pedal appendage should be further treated for some period of your space-time by the prudent application of the ice to the arch of the right foot for brief periods, followed always by immersion in the warm water. Question 84.6. Questioner, the instrument asked if the restricted, unpublishable healing information that was given during the first book could be included in book 4 since readers who have gotten that far will be dedicated somewhat. Answer, I am Ra. This publication of material shall, in time, shall we say, be appropriate. There is intervening material. Question 84.7. Questioner, I am sure that we are getting into a problem area with the first distortion here with a difficulty with a bit of transient material, but I have questions from a couple of people that I would like to ask. The first one especially is of no lasting value. Andrijapa Rich asks about the coming physical changes, specifically this summer. Is there anything that we could relate to him about that? Answer, I am Ra. We may confirm the good intention of the source of this entity's puzzles and suggest that it is a grand choice that each may make to, by desire, collect the details of the day or, by desire, seek the keys to unknowing. Question 84.8. Questioner, I can't help but be interested in the fact that this other entity to whom we were previously referring reported being taken on board a craft. Could you tell me something about that?
Yeah. Cassie brings up a good point, right? So a lot of things that happen, let me go up in full screen over here. A lot of stuff like you're referring to, so interesting about how lupus and arthritis being karmic or past life stuff. And a lot of that stuff, like I have a lot of arthritis, right? There's a lot of people that have that stuff because of being a wanderer. And coming from, I talk about this all the time, because of being a wanderer, when you come from a higher plane of existence and you come down here, you're going to resonate at a higher frequency down here, and you're going to be doing things that are going to be in and out of this matrix, because you will be attached to this body, but you will be moving out of the body, and you'll be healing the planet itself, and things that other people that are indigenous to this matrix, that are going through this for the first time, won't be doing that as much as what you'll be doing. So because of that, you get out of phase with the body, and that causes problems to begin with. But then, because you're not indigenous to here, that transition that you have of being from a higher plane coming down to here causes that stuff to happen, and that plays out in a karmic way, that the longer you're here in service to others as a wanderer, the more that that the body that you keep coming back to, a new body, is going to realize more and more the vibration that you're supposed to be in is not supposed to be here at the time. So what you have is a compounded interest of damages that happen, that vibrate you out, because you're vibrating outside of the realm of being in this place. So that causes more and more inflammation the longer you stay here, because the more you're in this matrix, the more the matrix realizes that you're not supposed to be in it, and it's trying to expel you, like a dog trying to scratch a flea off of its back or something. Okay. So you have this karmic bond that'll start to build up, where basically the longer you're here, the harder it is for you to stay in a pain body without being in pain. Do you understand that? Because I don't know if that's getting specific enough. So that's why when people sign on for long term, the 75,000 years, 150,000 years, that's rare. Most of the people that are here haven't signed on for that length of time. They're here for this last part. So they've only been here a few lifetimes, even though 86% of the population of this earth is currently not from here. The majority of those people are late comers. They've come down for a few lifetimes to be here. And some of them are here for just this lifetime, because it's the last one, and they want to go through this in that way. Those people won't have as many problems as people that have been here for a long time, who have returned down here. So the longer you're here, the worse it gets on you, and the more you have to tolerate, and the more you have to prove yourself basically to the universe, because the more you have to be diligent. So that's why most people don't want to be wanderers, because when they are, the longer it takes you to right the ship, the more damage you have to go through, the more pain you have to go through. So the more that you have to stay diligent, and that's the sacrifice that you knew before you signed on to come here that you would end up doing. So you have this amount of time to get the job done, and then you're going to be in a lot of pain. You're going to have a lot of problems with your body that you're going to have to deal with, and that's going to try and lock you into the matrix. If you lock yourself back into the matrix, that stuff goes away, because you're no longer doing anything, and you become part of the system. So the system then accepts you. But the more you're fighting against the system, the harder the system fights against you. Does that make enough sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So okay, because Cassie said that makes complete sense. So literally, when you sign on, you're told, so that's why people will only sign on for like 75,000 years, because that's enough to where it's going to be hard enough towards the end. If someone is really stuck, because this place was really stuck, if they're really stuck like this place, every one of us who signs on knows that it's going to be really difficult. So some of us, knowing we're going to be here for a very long time, Cassie, you know this because we've talked about this part, and you'll understand that. Some of us who know we're going to be here for a very long time, many, 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 many more lifetimes than it would normally take, we won't come in as a human the first time. We will come in and go through the process as a blade of grass, a rock, a tree, a mouse, and move up from first dimensional being to second dimensional being to third dimensional being, because the matrix will accept us longer if we go through those motions as coming in from a higher plane than it will if we just come in as a human. People who come in as walk-ins, they're only going to come in for a few lifetimes, because this place will try to kick them out. It's designed to do that, because it doesn't want people to just come in here and make changes. Evil people won't do it. because they don't want having all those issues. First, to go back up. Okay, sorry about that. I was buffing and I realized that because I was talking about something I shouldn't have been talking about, right? So some of us, let me go back to that. Some of us who have come in, who know that we're signing on to be here for a really long time. I'll try to speed this up because it looks like my latency was going out of control when I was giving too much information. So the algorithms don't like it. So those of us who are come down as wanderers, if we knew that we were going to be here for a very long time and we knew we were going to end up with pain in our bodies manifesting because this matrix is going to try and kick us out, some of us came through and started at the very bottom as an amoeba or a blade of grass or a leaf or a tree or a rock, and then moved up from first dimensional being to second dimensional being to third dimensional being in the normal time that it takes to do so. So that we would be more integrated with the matrix itself, knowing we're going to be here for X amount of hundreds of thousands of years or tens of thousands of years before we fix this, knowing where we're going to be bombarded by the matrix itself to try and kick us out in the pain body because we don't resonate with it. Eventually, each time we come into a new pain body from another generation to another generation, we're going to have more and more physical problems to have to deal with. So the only way that we can survive a planet that's really stuck like this one is to come in and go through the entire motion of going through it naturally. So this matrix accepts us more fully, and it takes longer for the matrix to realize that we're from a higher dimension and then start giving us more degrading attributes in our physical features. And I know, Cassie, you know about that because you and I have talked about that. You remember being a rock, right? So that's usually what happens with people that are wanderers, and people who are in service to self will not do that. They don't want to be wanderers because they don't want to get veiled again. To begin with and lose the power that they have. So they're not into self-sacrifice at all. So they don't want to do it. So it's very, 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 you could say that 100 times rare that someone in service to self would be a wanderer. That is like 1 in a trillion might come back, but 10% of all people that are in service to others will at some point come back to assist people in some way. But to a place like this Earth that's really stuck the way this place is, we're rare. So 86% of the population that is here are wanderers, but of that 86%, less than 3%, maybe 10% max, are wanderers that have been here for more than and then I started buffing again, so I apologize for that, right? Yes, Penny. Penny asked the question, is learning disabilities part of that as well? Yes. Everything that is a disability in the body that they, especially autoimmune disorders or diseases, where they're like, we don't know what causes this, but there's hundreds of them. There's more autoimmune diseases because of wanderers than they're aware of, but they equate it mostly with the foods that we eat. And that's good that they're doing that, because a lot of the diseases that we have are because of the foods that we eat and the crap that's in them. But people's disorders, learning disabilities, and the like are usually done in synonymous with, and you'll find that you have you get sunburnt more than other people, you get food poisoning more than other people, you can't tolerate spicy food more than other people. And it's not just because of your DNA. It's not because of your specific race that you are. It has to do with you having a problem with being in this body more than anything. And that's why when we start with people, we say, usually how do I know if I'm a wanderer? Well, first of all, do you inside instinctively not think this is home? You feel alone and you feel like you're from somewhere else. That's overwhelmingly 98% of all wanderers feel that. Not very many other people. They're like, no, man, this is my home. This is a cool place. Anyone who's in service to self, this is cool. They're okay with it. They can eat shit and howl at the moon. It doesn't bother them. They can sit on the beach and get burnt. They can eat whatever foods they want to eat. They rarely get sick. They rarely get food poisoning. I don't know what your guys' problem is. Must be lousy DNA. Has more to do with where your soul is from than it does where your physical body is from, and what DNA you have in your physical body will determine that. So people who are living in the flesh, bought into it wholly, they seem to have a better time in the flesh. Those people who are here for the first 10 lives have a better time physically in this place. Wanderers, older souls have a hard time being in this place with their physical body. That's why. Okay, let me continue here. Let's go back and start and have Ra continue.
Answer, I am Ra. The nature of contact is such that in order for the deep portion of the trunk of the tree of mind affected to be able to accept the contact, some symbology which may rise to the conscious mind is necessary as a framework for the explanation of the fruits of the contact. In such cases, the entity's own expectations fashion the tale which shall be the most acceptable to that entity, and in the dream state, or a trance state in which visions may be produced, this seeming memory is fed into the higher levels of the so-called subconscious and the lower levels of the conscious. From this point the story may surface as any memory and cause the instrument to function without losing balance or sanity. Question 84.9. Questioner, going back to the previous session, you stated that each sexual activity was a transfer before the veil. Would you trace the flow of energy that has transferred and tell me if that was the planned activity or a planned transfer by the designing logos?
Right. So before he answers that question, right, now he's jumping all over. He's talking about being abducted by aliens. Now he's talking about sexual right energy here. That's Dawn asking questions in an order that he wrote down, right? But Cassie said, yeah. She said, yeah, it's surreal to know what it feels like to be in something other than a human body, Cassie says, right? Yeah, I mean, truly, to have that memory of being in, I was a dog in one life, to have that memory, to be unveiled enough to remember yourself as a rock or a tree or an ant or something other than human is most humans are veiled, so they don't have that memory. So when you're going through the third density for the first time, I'm looking at the camera like you guys can see me on the camera. When you're going through the third density, the third dimension for the first time, you don't remember being those other things. It's only when you're closer to being awake that you start going, I remember my past lives. And then you start going, maybe I remember being in the womb, or maybe I remember being an animal or something like that. The people who are the closest to being to moving up, so they're far more unveiled. They're the ones that start remembering that stuff, and it's rare that even they remember being a dog or a cat or something, but it still happens. But that's a weird feeling to be running on all fours. I think Penny, you were the one that was talking about that before, where you remember running on all fours as a dog or a wolf or something. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that hasn't happened yet. But I thought we talked about that, and you were making that comment at one point about remembering that. So that's a rarity unless you're a wanderer or somebody who's really close to being unveiled. But if you're here for the first time and you're being unveiled, you normally don't remember being an animal, or specifically a first dimensional being, rock, a tree, a blade of grass, the wind, water. You don't usually remember that. Part of the planet or a different planet. You don't usually remember that the first time through. And you usually remember that the second or third time you've come back to another planet to where you're doing that sort of stuff, right? Yeah, right. Now, Peter with his dyslexia, right? Again, Peter's dyslexia. The only reason that he's there, it's certain things that reveal it, so his life beyond, so the time that Peter spent here is manifesting in that regard too. It's not what people think. You'd be surprised how many wanderers are dyslexic. There's my buddy Paul, who's deceased now. He had the same problem with math, but not with regular numbers. Weirdly, he could. It wasn't with words. It was with numbers, and specifically when you would be doing math, he would have a dyslexia. He called it dyscalculia. Because it wasn't from reading. I don't know if that's a legit word, but that's what he entitled it, because it was dyslexia only with numbers, not with words. Words were fine. He could read words all day. But when he looked at numbers, the 6 and 9s would trip out on him, and the numbers would flip around. And sometimes the the plus and minus symbols would look different to him, and it would screw him up. But he was aware of that. Being a wanderer, he was aware. So he would ask me about math because he could read. So he would, word problems were fine with him, but number problems he would have an issue with, right? Isn't that weird? So yeah, you just have to, once you start to realize that about yourself, you just have to allow it to run its course with you and just accept it, right? I'm not going crazy. I was a dog once, or I was a horse once, or I was a bird once, because everybody was. They just, the ones that are going through this for the first time, they'll not know that until they come back and do it again, or become very unveiled, possibly in the last lifetime that they're on a planet in third dimension. Okay, let's continue here.
Answer, I am Ra. The path of energy transfer before the veiling during the sexual intercourse was that of the two entities possessed of green ray capability. The awareness of all as creator as that which opens the green energy center. Thusly there was no possibility of blockage due to the sure knowledge of each by each that each was the creator. The transfers were weak due to the ease with which such transfers could take place between any two polarized entities during sexual intercourse. Question 84.10. Questioner, what I was getting at precisely was, for example, when we close an electrical circuit, it is easy to trace the path of current. It goes along the conductor. I am trying to determine whether this transfer is between the green energy centers, the heart chakras. I am trying to trace the physical flow of the energy to try to get an idea of blockages after the veil. I may be off on the wrong track here, but if I am wrong, we'll just drop it. Can you tell me something about that? Answer, I am Ra. In such a drawing or schematic representation of the circuitry of two mind, body, spirits or mind, body, spirit complexes in sexual or other energy transfer, the circuit opens always at the red or base center and moves as possible through the intervening energy centers. If baffled, it will stop at orange. If not, it shall proceed to yellow. If still unbaffled, it shall proceed to green. It is well to remember in the case of the mind, body, spirit that the chakras or energy centers could well be functioning without crystallization. Question.
Right. So at that point, you're talking about unbaffling, meaning that it wasn't stifled or it wasn't stopped, then it would continue. But you have to realize that it doesn't necessarily mean just by activating the chakras doesn't mean that it's crystallizing the chakras or activating it fully. And that's what he was talking about. So it's not crystallizing the chakras, it's just activating the chakras in the sexual right energy of what's going on. But it has the potential of crystallizing, and it depends on what your alignment is and where you are in your development of whether it's crystallizing them or not. But it could be doing it as a function without crystallizing it, is what he's saying.
84.11. Questioner. In other words, they would be functioning, but it would be equivalent in an electrical circuitry to having a high resistance, shall we say, and although the circuit will be complete, red through green, the total quantity of energy transferred would be less. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. We might most closely associate your query with the concept of voltage. The uncrystallized, lower centers cannot deliver the higher voltage. The crystallized centers may become quite remarkable in the high voltage characteristics of the energy transfer as it reaches green ray, and indeed as green ray is crystallized, this also applies to the higher energy centers until such energy transfers become a non-estation asterisk for the creator. Asterisk onestation, N. Adornment, grace. Obs. Question 84.12. Questioner, would you please correct me on this statement? I am guessing that what happens is that when a transfer takes place, the energy is that light energy that comes in through the feet of the entity, and the voltage or potential difference is measured between the red energy center and, in the case of the green ray transfer, the green energy center, and then must leap or flow from the green energy center of one entity to the green energy center of the other, and then something happens to it. Could you clarify my thinking on that? Answer, I am Ra. Yes.
Okay, hold on, and I'll stop here. Let me get this next one started when it comes over to this second part. Part 2.
Question 84.13.
All right, I'll stop there, right? So, okay, so Cassie said, what is Ra talking about? Crystallining the chakras, and how do we crystalline them? Okay, so Yeah, so let me turn the camera off here. Turn my camera on. Put me into full. So when you activate the chakras by moving into that category, like if you're activating the upper three chakras by moving into to being in service to others portion of your beingness, you're going to start moving up as your ascension is moving you up to become more unveiled. Then you're aligning the chakras, the lower chakras through the heart chakra, and you start aligning the upper chakras. That's you're activating those chakras, and you're moving into what those chakras represent: the throat chakra, and the wisdom and the understanding and the understanding, and the expansion of your consciousness. That is activating them. So once you do that, you activate your chakras. You then have to balance yourself, and you have to take care of yourself, and you have to work more diligently to then become more unveiled. And in doing so, that keeps all of your chakras activated. You have to stay diligent in checking your chakras to make sure they're not blocked in some way. When you get used to doing that and keeping them activated fully, as all of your chakras become activated, and the only way to do that is to be in service to others, to get the upper three chakras also very activated. Once you do that, and your whole entire body is now, this is the totality. This is the mind, body, spirit totality, complex totality. So when you become a mind, body, spirit complex, is activating the chakras and the realization of your ascension, realizing I am something higher than this pain body. I'm not just, I think, therefore I am. I'm not just self-aware, but I'm moving into the upper chakras, that I am a higher being. And I'm starting to move myself into that, and that part that Rob was talking about earlier, that I was talking about. When you hit that realization of the unveiling, to where things change for you and you start perceiving the world completely different, and that calm comes over you, that is when all of your chakras are now activated. So the more that you travel down that path and you stay in that path, and this is why we always say that place you're trying to get to when you meditate, above the thinking mind, above the ego, in that place of peace and calm without that stuff happening, is where you're trying to stay in while you're conscious, while you're awake in this matrix at all times. That is continuing to get all of your chakras to stay activated and unblocked. So now they're at their full potential. Then you start pulling the Kundalini and Kunda buffer energies more, and that starts activating your chakras and charging them with even more energy that you're drawing from the matrix and from the universe, as you're balancing yourself with the masculine and feminine energies. And I use the left as the masculine because of the devil on your left shoulder, the egoic lower three chakras, and then the right side with the feminine energy, because that's your conscience, and the upper three chakras side of your body and the way it works. When you balance those energies, and you balancing yourself, and then that causes the Kundalini energy to stay spiraling. And when the sun is moving into your sun sign, the moon sign, or the moon is moving into your sun sign, and you are balanced and stay balanced during that time period and don't eat of the flesh, that also solidifies that energy that illuminates you. This begins the process of, when you're balancing everything else, when you're doing the due diligence, when you're keeping everything balanced and on track and working, then during that time period of the month, that's the tithing of giving back the 10%. Then you don't eat of the tree of life in that particular moment. It illuminates things, and that illumination isn't just in the brain. It reverbs from all of your brain cells back down your endocrine system, and it goes and it returns energy. That's the tithing, the 10%. It returns energy from the universe to you down through your chakras. So the Kundalini comes up, goes up the chimney, and with the oil, and charges everything, and then boom, that explodes, and that starts to solidify everything else, and it spirals back down as the Kundalini energy continues to come up. So now you have the two energies coming up, and it comes up, and then you have the two energies going down, and then you create the infinity symbol in your body of the figure 8, and you become a closed circuit where the energy is now charging your chakras again and again, and that starts to solidify and crystalline your chakras. And then that is when your third eye will open up, and it's usually looking up, and then you'll start to pull it down, and that's when you feel that euphoric effect of what's going on, this is weird, and you start having to figure all that out. And then that starts to crystalline all of your chakras, and when that starts to happen, things change exponentially for you, because you're now a closed circuit, but you're pulling more energy. The Kundalini energy keeps coming in, but it's not expending out. You're now transmuting that and keeping that in your body, and that is causing yourself to move more into your higher self, and you're moving outside of the body now. That energy is feeding you as your higher self, and that energy transfers now to your higher self, and you expand your consciousness out starting to expand your consciousness out to your real self, which is not in the pain body. The pain body is now solidifying the chakras, and the energy that comes off of the chakras, now that they're crystalline, starts feeding your higher self even more, and then you expand out even more from that. And that's how you do that. So you balance, you continue to eat the right foods, check on your chakras and make sure that you're working on them at all times, and you're constantly trying to balance them and keep them balanced while you're eating good foods, while you're meditating, while you're checking on that sexual right energy. And this is what Ra's talking about, and utilizing that energy to expand your consciousness. All of that encompassing pulls you into that place of your higher self, and then you start residing there more. And when the more you can stay there, the more your chakras will align and crystallize, because they're aligning, and they start going, and they just start flaring like lots of energy, and their potentiation becomes like even more grandiose by 1,000-fold, and then that just illuminates everything, and then the Kundalini energy that keeps coming in is now transferring back down, and it's going up and down, up and down, up and down, and it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and then that translates to your soul, and it pushes your consciousness up to that soul beingness. And when you stay there long enough, everything starts to crystalline, and that's when it just flares even bigger than it does when they're just activated. It flares even bigger, and then it's easy to stay in that place. You achieve that consciousness at all times, where it's hard for the matrix to pull you down. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it becomes easier for you to push out of that and to stay in that place, right? You're welcome, right? Because thank you, that makes sense. The difference between my own experience, my balance had been my focus, and I feel that I have experienced what you're saying. Thank you for that explanation. It takes a while to get used to it, and then to allow it to run its course, and then you get that closed circuit feeling, to where you feel like you have more energy. Rick, welcome. I didn't see you there before. I apologize if you've been here and I didn't say hi. It looks like you just got here. Okay. So once you start, first you feel different, and you look at the world different, and you wonder if you just got here because you feel like you're activated in a weird way. That happens, and that's you when you've started to activate your chakras, and you're balancing them now, and you're on the right path. Then that illuminates you, and it illuminates you start pulling you to your higher self. And you're starting to see as your higher self, and that's kind of confusing at first, and you're not sure what's going on. Then you get used to that and realize that that's going to be your normal from now on. That's where you want to be. Then you start learning how to once you balance the chakras and become that totality, that's when they start to activate all together as one, and you keep the blockages taken care of, and you reside in that place more and more often. Then eventually you're just there almost always, in that place, and you don't have to meditate to get there. So people who don't have or do have a hard time with meditation, I tell them find that Zen, because once you pull yourself up there, you won't have to meditate anymore, because you're in a meditative state 24 hours a day. When you first wake up in the morning, the matrix tries to grab you. Sometimes when you're doing things, you forget, and your matrix tries to grab you, and you go, no, wait. And then it only takes you a second or two, and you pull yourself right back into that place. And you realize, no, I'm the experiencer. And then you stay there, and the longer you stay there, the more your chakras stay balanced, the more they get crystalline, and the more powerful they are, and the more the energy of this place is feeding you, and then you're feeding more energy back to this place, because now you're generating energy instead of just consuming energy from the matrix. You're actually becoming the true potential of being one of the co-creators of this matrix, of the logos, of the logi, the logos. You become more of a person who can then actuate this place and bend it to your will more so. And that's why they don't want you, the evil people don't want you knowing this, because you have the potentiation to then control more of the matrix and stop them, because you no longer fear them, because they can't harm you, and they come at you and they're just like going to crash on you, and you just go, no. That's that moment that Neo had when he woke up and became unveiled. Not only that, he was now in control of the matrix, more so than Mr. Smith and his men. They were no longer in control. He had more control over the matrix than they did. And at the end of the very first movie, he dials up and talks to the AI god and says, we got to make a deal, because this is what's going on, and I'm going to wake these people up, and I'm going to be in control. And that they threw as much at him, like you see the second movie. In the third movie, and Smith tries to gain control of everyone in the Matrix to attack Neo, and he's got, hundreds of thousands of himself trying to attack Neo all at once, and Neo still not being damaged by him and still able to fend all of that off until Neo gets tired of it and then explodes out of it, and it's just like, okay, I'm done playing with you, and it's not going to happen anymore. But before that, Neo was toying with the AI that was in control until that happened. And then when Smith started to evolve and get more evil and trying to attack Neo realized that, and that's when Neo said, okay, enough of that. I'm no longer playing with you in any way. And that's when things changed. And then there was the race at that point. Smith was trying to evolve with him and become more and more and more and more evil to match Neo's being in service to others. And that's how that continued. And meanwhile, Neo was still fighting with the humans against the AI god. And so eventually he had to go and make a deal with AI god. Look, if we keep going the way we're going, Smith's coming for you next. I didn't like what they did with that movie in that respect, because they made the AI god look like the god in heaven, and everything was tranquil and they were not evil in any way, yet they were doing that. And so there's a psychological question and answer that needs to be had about that the second to the last movie before Resurrections of the Matrix, of those movies. Anyway, so that's another conversation. I should break down those movies and do segments on that. All right, let me get back over here and let's get Raw continuing here.
Questioner, would you please do that? Answer, I am Ra. The energy transfer occurs in one releasing of the potential difference. This does not leap between green and green energy centers, but is the sharing of the energies of each from red ray upwards. In this context, it may be seen to be at its most efficient when both entities have orgasms simultaneously. However, it functions as transfer if either has the orgasm, and indeed in the case of the physically expressed love between a mated pair which does not have the conclusion you call orgasm, there is, nonetheless, a considerable amount of energy transferred due to the potential difference which has been raised, as long as both entities are aware of this potential and release its strength to each other by desire of the will in a mental or mind complex dedication. You may see this practice as being used to generate energy transfers in some of your practices of what you may call other than Christian religious distortion systems of the law of one.
Yes, Rick, I went back to using the videos from that I used the first time I did The Matrix. So it's now an English accent, not an American accent, because I got tired of the having to edit everything the way I was with the program that I had. So the only problem that we have with this is there's a commercial at the beginning of the video. So I went back. This is what I used for the very first time I went through the Law of One. And looking at it, I probably should have stayed with this to begin with instead of trying to do the first 80 sessions with the program that I was with. It's a slower cadence, and I don't have control of the cadence of this, and it's an English accent instead of an American accent, but you can look on the screen and actually see the visual. And so I like this program better. It's on YouTube. It's a web, somebody's page on YouTube, somebody's channel on YouTube called Muffy Moose or Maffy Moose on YouTube. But I like the cadence. It's okay. I like the accent, and I like being able for you guys to see the visuals. And it makes it easier for me to track where we are, because all I have to do is look at the videos when I pause it and see what question is on the screen and start there for the next session. So it's far easier for me. And now I'm just like, okay, we're going to just stay with this and continue with this till the end of the Law of One, right? So let me press play here and we'll keep going here.
Question 84.14. Questioner, could you give me an example of that last statement? Answer, I am Ra. We preface this example with the reminder that each system is quite distorted and its teachings always half lost. However, one such system is that called the Tantric Yoga. Question 84.15.
I haven't seen the last one, Peter. So there it looks like they went back to talking about unveiling and stuff. Peter said in the last Matrix, Neo goes into and looks what is that fraternity, and it's all got to do with love and the Alpha and the Omega. Love is the answer, and the awakening. One's love, and love Trinity is love. Okay, so so that's good that they did that. Then I was unaware of what they did with the last movie because I haven't seen it. So it looks like they continued talking about the awakening. I'll have to see that movie and find out. Hopefully, they're not saying that the way to love and awakening is through the AI God. Let's hope that's not what they're doing in there, because that's kind of what they were trying to do with the last few movies, the Resurrections and the like before that. So let's hope that they didn't continue that messaging and they went back to the original messaging that the guy who wrote it was trying to do with it. Let's continue here. I'm going to have to actually, maybe we should just stop here because it's 10 minutes to 6. I got to go and shower Mom and then get dinner. So we'll just stop here and start over like 2 questions back just because of what they're talking about. So we'll just say session 84, question 12 is where we'll start next week. And we'll pick up there. So I'm actually going to still put that into my phone anyways, just because it's easier for me to look that up. So 8412 is where we'll start next week. So let me come back over here and I'll go back and over here like that. So yeah. Yes, and that's why I wanted to back up to 2 questions, Cassie. We'll talk about that next week. In that session where let's all back up so that we come right back to that. Yes, Rod did just say tantric yoga. So we'll get into that next week and we'll talk about tantric yoga next week. Yes, that Rod did mention that. So we'll talk more about that. That's why I said, let me just stop here because I knew that where we're going with that is a whole nother topic. So I want it because that's going to get further into the crystallization of the chakras. And that's what I was touching on when I was talking about the solidification and the closing of the circuit and the infinity and the energy being returned and coming back up and going through the endocrine system. That's tantric yoga. So we'll talk more about that next week. So we'll back up 2 questions and then we'll get into, and I might even back up 3 questions to get back to when they were talking about the crystallization, and then go forward from there and move into this entire section of this portion of it. So what I may do is just start this part 2 over again and go back. So that'll probably be back to those questions, and we'll pick up from there and talk about the crystallization and what I was talking about there. And then when we move into tantric yoga, where he's talking about that right there, I'll get more in depth and involved in explaining that. And you'll see how it ties into what I was already saying without telling you the name of that particular yoga. Okay, so we'll get into that next week when we start that. Right. Thank you. Denise said, "I love tonight's show." Well, Denise, that's because you're like Reese. You remember the first time I went through and we were using that program, and I like the voice better in this as well. But it was a good session. We're moving into a good place in the Law of One, and weirdly, there's some coinciding, serendipitous coinciding with Brooke and what she's going through today. And she saw that when she was on her tea break. She's at work, and she saw that. I said, "Do you realize that I was messaging her? Did you realize that I was talking about what you're going through? I wasn't mentioning you though." And she said, "I did see that, and that's weird that Raw talked about that today, and I'm having this happen today." I said, "I'll work with you on your lunch and tell you more about that." So tonight, when she gets her lunch in a couple more hours, I'll be able to talk to her and give her a little bit more of. I said, what I'm saying in there should be helpful to you. She goes, I was noticing that you were talking about that, so I'm going to give her more of that because she's just today was like, there's something that's changed in everything that I see. She just showed me a picture of herself. I didn't get permission to tell you guys this, but she showed a picture of herself and said, and my eyes, I think I don't know, I look confused maybe or maybe awake, and I'm like, it's not what you're seeing in your eyes. What you're seeing in your eyes is you seeing with these two eyes and your third eye. You're starting to see from the perspective of your higher self. As I said, we'll talk more on your lunch break. So I got to work with her tonight on her break about that particular thing that Ross talking about tonight. But it's happens, and Rick, you just went through this not too long ago, where you were saying that something changed within you and you were perceiving things differently. And I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this. So I'm glad that you popped in when you did. You might want to back up and listen to at least the last hour of what I was talking about in this session, the part that you missed, or start at the beginning and come forward. But I would say at least the last hour or maybe hour and a half, because you're going to see that what you are going through currently, what you've been going through now for, I guess it's been about a month where you go, or maybe a little bit longer. But that's when I first heard that you were talking about that, how something in you changed and you're feeling that you're perceiving things differently in around the world and perceiving the world. You just went through that same upgrade that I talked about in this session, that Raw talks about in this session, that because there's many upgrades that we go through, there's many downloads that we get that are upgrades, but there's a few that are milestone upgrades to the ascension, and one of them is that perception of things are way different, and I'm seeing things different, and I'm not quite sure what it is, and it's confusing at first until you get used to seeing things this way, the way that you're seeing me seeing things. And Brooke is just realizing that about herself. She took a screenshot of herself, picture of herself, and sent it to me, and I was like, if you look at your eyes, it's because you're not just seeing through those eyes. You're seeing through the third eye and those eyes at the same time, because you're perceiving things from the top down now. You're perceiving things not from this avatar, but outside of the avatar, from your beingness. But you're seeing through the avatar here to see this place, but you're also seeing it from the third eye, from the spirit eyeball at the same time. So you're now literally looking through both instead of looking through the matrix, waiting to become unveiled. You're actually now residing in that place, and you're seeing from there and here at the same time. So then you'll start perceiving things differently. And I usually tell people, if you close your eyes and continue looking with your third eye, you'll start realizing that you see more with your third eye than you know, because here this distracts you and you don't realize you're seeing with both. So at some point you start feeling taller because you're seeing from up here now and through here. So you feel like you're 2 inches taller at first, and then it goes poof, and it illuminates, and then you start seeing from there. And when that happens, you're like, not only do you feel taller, but now you feel like you're not quite in body anymore, because you're not. You're perceiving yourself as out of body all the time, and that's when it's easier to channel from that place, because now you're being your higher self. So you're actually starting to see things from that perspective of you, the soul, not you, the pain body. Right. So you might want to go back and take a look at that, brother, and see that, because when you went through that, I didn't have a chance to reach out to you to help guide you through that. And you kind of were going through it on your own. So this might help you a little bit. You may not need it anymore because you may have had enough time to figure that out, but you might want to go back and listen to what Ross said there, and listen to what I said there about the Kundalini energy and activating crystallizing your chakras, and how that feeds into your higher self and allows you to resonate there and live from that place more, and how that happens. Denise, you're funny. She says, I can't wait. I'm only 5 feet tall. You're cute. But yeah, you'll do the same. You'll start perceiving things, and you'll be like, I feel like oddly taller. I feel like I'm a couple inches taller. It's because your third eye is starting to open. You're starting to actually perceive things from your third eye, which actually resides up here, like that, truly, right? People think it's here. It's there in the brain. But when you move into the soul, out of the physical body, at first you open your third eye, and it's in the brain, in that position where it's here. And then you feel like you're a little bit taller because you're literally seeing a couple of inches taller. And then all of a sudden you start feeling like you're even taller because now you start residing in there. So that means you're moved out of the pain body completely, and you're actually dual aspect of sensing. Your senses of the pain body are here and the spirit body. So when you start doing that, you feel even taller. So you'll feel like 4 inches taller at all times because you're literally perceiving things this way instead of just here and here. It starts with here and here, and then it goes from here and here to here, up there, like that. So you're outside because you're higher self, and so you start perceiving it from the top down perspective at a higher range. Okay, I love you guys. I'll see you guys either in the chat or on Wednesday, or I'll see you guys back here for the Law of One on Friday to do the Law of One. I love you guys. Have a great weekend. Happy St. Patrick's Day again. For those of you around the world that are going to listen to this before St. Patrick's Day, if you're interested in St. Patrick's Day, happy St. Patrick's Day. Have a great night. And I will be posting, like I said, pictures of what I cook on St. Patrick's Day. I always do. Always post it. So before I eat, I'll have my plate sitting there with mustard all over everything, the corned beef and cabbage and potatoes and carrots sitting on my plate with mustard all over it, getting ready to eat it. All right, guys. I love you. Have a great night.